The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
You guys thought the Reds were going to do something yesterday. Got ya. They got you. They got me. They got everyone in this room. Hook, line, and sinker. We're going to talk a little Reds baseball today. MLB trade deadline reaction, what the Reds, what they did, what they didn't do. Match that towards your expectations, of course. We're going to talk about Nick Krall as well. We have a clip that we're going to air here shortly from Chatterbox Reds because, Nick Krall had some answers, but all it did was create more questions. Of course, in response to the Reds' moves at the deadlines or lack thereof. We'll talk about all of that coming up. One thing we didn't touch on yesterday's show, of course, we do expect to be potentially hearing of a possible punishment being handed down, to that cheating team up north involving their cheating scandal. So we're, of course, going to weigh in on some of the biggest cheating scandals in the history of sports. We got a loaded, jam-packed show here today, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner back with you here today. Sorry for some of you and the others who don't mind it. I appreciate you. But we got Jacob, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob, good morning.
That's
How
right.
are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm battling through it. Last night was fun. We got to meet some of the chat. Came out to the Reds game. It was a good time. But if I'm going to be honest, Wednesdays after a 3-2-1 night are always a little tough. But we'll get through it. We're all good.
So update everybody again. A 3-2-1 night is what exactly?
$3 beers, $2 hot dogs, $1 ice creams. I did about 9 threes, 6 twos, and 1 1.
I heard the hot dog lines were a little longer than you guys had wanted.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I was trying to go for the 999. I thought that was going to be in play. I was feeling good going down to the game. 9 hot dogs, 9 beers in 9 innings. But with those hot dog lines, you'd be wasting an inning. With the pitch clock and everything, you're wasting a whole inning, maybe 2, waiting for hot dogs.
So you're fighting through it here this morning. But what about our guy Casey? Casey and Jimmy, good morning. Casey, we'll start with you. How are the dogs and the brews treating you this morning and the morning after?
So early on, I got my 4 beers and 4 hot dogs in before the game even started. I was doing great. I was ahead of schedule. It was then when I realized after about the 4th inning when I was like, I need to go get more hot dogs and more beer to try to keep up with the challenge. The lines were just too ridiculously long. I had to give up on that challenge. Now, the Bud Deck was great because they supplied us with $3 beers, which the lines
supplied. They happily took our payment in exchange for beers.
That's fair. That's a fair. Yeah, they definitely were taking our money for sure. But the lines up there were non-existent. So getting beer was not an issue. It was just getting hot dogs.
Getting beer was so much not an issue that they sold out of $3 beers on the Bud Deck.
The beer lines being short is what fascinates me.
Yeah.
The hot dog line being long, that's what fascinates me as far as that's concerned. But it's probably because everyone got their beer so damn quick, they just went lining up for the dogs. Yeah. But Jimmy, good morning. How are you? What was it like going to a game and, not watching the Reds get beat by your Tigers? I had to beat you to it because we know you like to rub that in every once in a while.
At this point, it's not as fun.
Not as fun.
I had a good time last night. It was nice to meet a lot of the guys. And, I was pretty disappointed about the hot dogs. That after the game, I made a stop at Skyline on my way home to get some more hot dogs. It was good.
I feel like his metabolism beats all of ours.
It's crazy.
Just throwing that out there.
You look at Jimmy, you think he eats 100 calories a day, and it turns out he eats like crap 24/7. He weighs 125 pounds soaking wet. So I'd love to have some of what he's having. Maybe it's the seaweed chips.
The seaweed chips. I still have those in my truck, by the way. I haven't opened them.
Come on. You got to try.
I didn't throw them away at least.
Yeah.
I didn't throw them away at least, nonetheless. But, all right, let's get to it. Reds trade deadline. It came and went. By the way, I do got to give a huge shout-out. Nick Kirby, okay, led the way with again, you had a lot of guys who were jumping in and out throughout, but it was total of, 7+ hours?
Yeah.
7+ hours of live programming yesterday, all centered around the Cincinnati Reds, all centered around the trade deadline. But shout out to Chatterbox Reds and Nick Kirby, again, who went live at 2 o'clock. It was supposed to be 2 to 6. I was watching it from 2 till about 6:30. He was still going live, keeping everyone updated. He checked off for a little bit, came on back a little bit later on, of course, to keep everyone updated after the Reds and the Cubs game too. Shout out to Nick Kirby and Chatterbox Reds for that great trade deadline special yesterday. Not just talking about the Reds moves, but all the moves around baseball.
Yeah, that's right. There's not many people out there that are doing 7 hours live, reacting to everything for the trade deadline. So shout out Kirby, shout out Chatterbox.
What are you laughing at? What is
The chat is going crazy right now.
Yeah,
It
chat
is
was a little ridiculous.
We're not
trying to
reading
hold
it.
in the
We're
loud
not
that this is a
reading it.
professional sports talk show, but man, we're not reading that out loud. But
Did
man,
I-
the chat
is it
is
about
hilarious.
me?
Nothing
No.
about you. It's
Oh,
about
thank
last
gosh.
night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was that kind of night.
Some of the guys we met last night are cracking some jokes in the chat that
I
are
love inside
very
jokes.
funny.
Love to be part of one someday.
I was trying to hold it together. If you wouldn't have said anything, I was going to be able to talk about the deadline.
Well, that's my, I think everyone's making fun of me. It's just one of those. I'm just used to that.
That's
So
fair.
there you go. No, Reds yesterday, they made some moves. They made some moves over the last couple days, but they didn't make the move. They didn't make the move that had everyone talking. They didn't make the move that would have us waking up today pissed off and upset. But some of you still sit here a little pissed off and upset. And I have to wonder why, because doing this show, we got to a point where it was just like, oh, we got to talk about the trade deadline expectations again today. There's only so much Jonathan India talk that we can all talk about in this room before we're like, yeah, we can't approach it with the same energy that we did a month ago. Like, we all know what Jacob's take is. You know what mine is. We know what Casey and Jimmy and Elliot, shout out to Elliot, looking forward to getting him back next week. We know what everyone's take is. Like, it's just kind of a sit back and wait. We talked about Nick Martinez. We talked about all the potential moves, names that could potentially be on the move. And overall, we'd figured that this team was not going to be aggressive at the deadline. And there are a lot of, again, social media. That's where perception lives, right? Like, social media is where perception lives. The Reds, they did kind of what I expected them to do, which was be extremely underwhelming. They were extremely underwhelming. I did not expect them to be aggressive. I didn't expect them to be aggressive in terms of blowing up the roster, and I didn't expect them to be aggressive in terms of adding to the roster. But I thought we were all on the same page. I thought we all kind of figured that this was going to be what happened. The amount of outrage on social media is kind of wild, if you ask me. I know that's what you do on social media, but this is a team that has been beaten up by injuries. I thought we were all pretty understanding of, man, the only thing that we have done wrong as fans is we get our hopes up. This is a team that has a lot of losses because of the inconsistencies due to some of their key guys being out, a lot of key injuries. No Matt McClain for most of the season. Frito, you can see the difference maker that he is. When he's out there, this team plays at a whole other level. When he's not out there, which he hasn't been out there a lot, their offense takes a major hit. We know exactly what's wrong with this team. So we've made those excuses. This team is inconsistent because of the injuries. They haven't been able to get it all put together at one time. So I thought we were all on the same page. We were going to head into yesterday's deadline with the big question mark, do they move on from Jonathan India? They did not. And I thought that's where it stopped. But people are angry because the Reds are 5 games out of a playoff spot, and Nick Krall and the Reds front office did nothing. That's exactly what we expected them to do. I'm not here to defend Nick Krall, but at the same time, there does come a full team responsibility. Everyone has to play a role in what direction that the team goes in. We talked about for weeks how the Reds had a prime opportunity to sit here when they had that 10-game stretch where they had the Tigers, where they had the Marlins, where they had the Rockies. They just came off that sweep against the Yankees. I don't blame Nick Krall for not making any major splash at the deadline. I blame the Reds, the guys on the field. And I don't care that injuries played a role in the inconsistencies. They went 5-5 playing the worst teams in baseball. I blame them. They didn't put the Reds in a position for the front office to say, okay, we have something here. Let's go, not all in, but let's take a risk. Let's gamble. Because right now, if this team was healthy, 100% healthy, I don't think that they're going 5-5 against 3 of the worst teams in baseball. But without those key guys, you can make an argument that the Reds are one of the worst teams in baseball. That's how inconsistent that they are throughout this time. So what I'm confused on is we wake up today knowing they didn't make a move yesterday. They've have a chance to sweep the Cubs later today, so there's some excitement about that, but people are still choosing to be mad that they made no move at the deadline. The question I have is, what did you actually expect, realistically? Because I feel like we just, as fans, because we like to complain, we just keep reaching into our old bag of tricks of cheap front office, not saying that they aren't, all right? They don't ever care about winning, not saying that they do, but I don't think that yesterday proves that they don't. We keep just going back to our greatest hits of just bashing the front office. The bottom line is even had they made a move yesterday, people would have woke up today saying, can't believe we mortgaged the future to get that guy. Like, it's a lose-lose situation when it's all said and done. I am not defending the front office. I'm just questioning Reds fans. Why are you so angry today based on what they did or did not do yesterday? I don't think they could have done anything to make you happy yesterday. And what they didn't do, I don't think should be making you that angry. But I know, Jacob, you thought that they should have done more, not adding, but subtracting.
Yeah, genuinely, I'm pretty upset about this deadline, and for different reasons than most people on social media. Most people on social media wanted a piece to help win this year. They think the team's close, whatever you read everywhere. But I think this team's pretty far away, and I was looking ahead to 2025, as you guys have heard me say time and time again. And we have relievers in this rotation right now, in this bullpen right now, that aren't going to be here next year. Justin Wilson's expiring contract. Obviously, they dumped Lucas Sims, who was an expiring contract as well. You're probably going to have to DFA Tony Santillan. He's out of options, and you have Emilio Pagan and Ian Jabot starting to throw already, probably going to come up soon. You have guys in AAA who are ready or close to ready. We've already seen Zulueta come up and pitch pretty well. Zach Maxwell's an exciting piece in AAA. I thought we were going to see those guys this year with the moves at the deadline or lack thereof. I think those guys are probably going to stay in AAA, and I don't really understand the rationale for holding on to guys that are going to leave at the end of the season. You're not going to get anything for when you have guys who are probably going to be pieces of the bullpen when you're looking to compete that could have been used this year and gotten valuable major league experience. Instead, you're going to keep, running Justin Wilson out there, hoping that he figures it out and starts pitching better. He hasn't been terrible, but I would certainly like to see guys that are going to be here in the future over guys that are just filler pieces, that's what he is. And Fernando Cruz is another story because obviously his value has tanked over the last month or so. He's been pretty bad for about a full month, but he's a 35-year-old second-year pitcher who's not going to be on the team in the future. I thought you could at least have gotten something for him. I mean, you got a lottery ticket single-A prospect for Lucas Sims. I thought you maybe could have got something close to that for him. I was pretty upset with the lack of movement in the bullpen. I hoped they traded India, but I completely understand why they keep him. You needed the right trade in order to move a guy like that, and maybe it didn't come. But Nick Krall's inability to talk about the market leads me to believe the same thing you said before the show started, that they got some offers and they were talking to teams. And whether it fell through or they didn't pull the trigger, whatever it might have been, I think the Reds missed on some opportunities this trade deadline.
So, and we're going to get to Nick Krall did address the media once the trade deadline had come and passed yesterday. And I do got to give a shout out to Nick Krall because he could have sent out the actual general manager and he didn't. I do got to give Nick Krall a little bit because I thought that when Dick Williams was with the Cincinnati Reds, Dick Williams was there to take credit for all the big moves that they made when they were signing Castellanos and they brought in Moustakas and they, with the Sonny Gray deal and all this stuff, and they get to Trevor Bauer. But then when things started going poorly, then Dick Williams kind of disappeared, and then it was Nick Krall who had to kind of, face the fire a little bit. So I that's what I didn't like about when Dick Williams would do that. I was like, no, like you could be in front of the cameras when things are going well. You need to be in front of the cameras when things aren't going well. You can't just feed the GM to the wolves when things aren't going well. So I appreciate the fact, at least, for Nick Krall stepping up to the media as far as that's concerned. I didn't really like his answers, which we'll get to coming up here in the next part of the show, as far as him just explaining some of that stuff. But again, the Reds, it was not a very exciting trade deadline as far as that's concerned. And like I said, shout out to Nick Kirby and Chatterbox Reds. They highlighted all the major moves around Major League Baseball, a lot of big trades. The Dodgers, I mean, shocker, they added. They're trying to win. They have money to spend. Who would have thunk it? But Jimmy, your Tigers, they got rid of one of your key guys.
Yeah, they got rid of Jack Flaherty to the Dodgers.
I have no clue why I said that twice. Did you notice that?
I did.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Back to you, Jimmy.
Yeah, they got rid of Jack Flaherty to the Dodgers, and it was kind of frustrating, kind of waiting all day because we knew it was going to happen, and we knew that the market was super saturated for pitching, and you saw guys get really good returns, like the Marlins got 2 top prospects and honestly 2 MLB ready guys from the Orioles for Trevor Rogers. So that's kind of what Tigers fans were hoping they would get for Flaherty. And they ended up with, I believe, the Dodgers' 8th and 22nd prospect, which was kind of frustrating. But it turned out that the injury that Flaherty had like a month ago, he got like an injection in his back, and he ended up being fine. He came back from it and pitched really well. for a couple starts, and then we scratched him the other day. So we kind of knew he was getting traded, thought he was fine. He obviously thought he was fine, was pitching well. The return that honestly could have been the biggest return out of any pitcher that was traded in the last couple days turned out not to be, and a little bit frustrating. But at the end of the day, the move needed to happen. They traded Mark Canha as well, who was also a one-year rental they got last year. So it was nice to at least get something in return for him. And I just think that kind of like you had talked about with the Reds, just getting something for those guys that were always just going to be one-year guys. I kind of wish that the Reds did a little more of that out of the bullpen. They just got something for some of those arms that probably aren't going to be here next year. And I do wish that the Reds also had traded India. I thought the Reds had a pretty good deadline. I liked the move they made with Montas the other day the most, because of the return they got was good. And the Tigers' deadline wasn't great, but, I'm used to it at this point.
That's what matters.
Yes, they kept Skubal, which was that was the goal.
Does he have another year of control? Two more.
Yeah.
So why were they looking to actively move on from him?
Because the market for him was probably.
And the Tigers are far off from being
a
competitive.
That's
competitive
the debate.
product.
I think that's the debate in Detroit.
They're having that internal
is
struggle.
They might be closer than people think.
It's kind of like, I'm not comparing Sonny Gray to him, but when the Reds had Sonny Gray, and honestly, no, Luis Castillo is probably the better comparison, where you had a guy that you could have paid, but everyone was pissed that they moved on from Luis Castillo. But I remember saying, I know it sounds weird, but I don't mind them moving on from him. Why would you pay top dollar to a guy to be your ace for a rebuilding team over the next 2 to 3 years? But, man, last year it would have been nice to have Luis Castillo. But, again, they were a year ahead of schedule as far as that's concerned. It sounds like the Tigers have a similar situation there.
I don't think the Tigers' future outlook's that drastically different than the Reds.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Tigers' future outlook kind of is still sitting in the minors. I think the Reds had that last year where a lot of guys came up and performed really well. I think the Tigers are looking to have something like that next year or the year after. And I think that's kind of why they were looking into the Skubal market. Obviously, I don't know if it was obviously I'm sure they got a bunch of calls. I don't know how seriously they took those calls. But I think that Skubal had a market. He was perceived to be touchable by other teams because the Tigers obviously hadn't performed very well this year. And a lot of the future is on young guys. They have 2 top 10 prospects in the MLB right now who they're kind of waiting to pull up, and I think that's what the front office is thinking. But if you still have 2 years of control with Skubal, I think keeping him is the right idea with how good he is. And if you are going to move on from him in the future, so be it. But hopefully you can bring those guys up, bring that core up that you want while he's still here. I think that's kind of what they're hoping. Flaherty, 1 year, whatever.
Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Appreciate you tuning in, hanging out with us. Someone said that they liked this shirt better than that. Well, someone said I can't wear OSU, bad words. It was just an Ohio shirt. All it said was Ohio yesterday.
Yeah, I love that our favorite school has monopolized the name of the state.
Yeah, like you
makes
just
me
put
so
Ohio,
happy.
and it's like not even the Bobcats, man. Like get that Bobcat stuff out. It was just a shirt that said Ohio yesterday. I mean, look at that. He's wearing the the block
that's a block O right there.
As far as that. And by the way, I had the brown shirt ready to rock today, but I decided to play nice.
That's good. That's good.
I had upset the Bengal Bros yesterday. I didn't need to get the
Bengal
Bengal Bros to jump on my case today, so I decided to just go with the old red shirt. So we'll see. All right. Seeing a lot of people talking about rentals, this, that, the other, too. Like, when is the right time to go for a rental? The Reds not in that position. They're just not in that position yet. Now, and we could talk about that more coming up in a bit. But we do have clips of Nick Krall addressing the media. We do have a clip from Chatterbox Reds, Nick Kirby and Trace, both reacting to the comments made by Nick Krall. So we'll get to all of that coming up. More Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, and Jacob with you here. It is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. The trade deadline is finally coming past. The last time I tried to make a suggestion about a sport making a change to anything, it led to World War III. And I'm against war, so no, not really. But I'm not. It doesn't matter. Bottom line is one suggestion I would make for baseball right now. Like, there is so much season left. I hate where the trade deadline is. I hate that the trade deadline is 2 weeks coming out of the All-Star break. I would like to see the trade deadline pushed back to the end of August, heading into September. I would really like to see. Now, the reason is because right now there's so many teams that are sitting there like, who are we? Like, I don't think, like, the Reds are still questioning, like, who the hell are we? I think by the end of August, you know exactly who you are. I don't care if mathematically you're still in the hunt at the end of August. At that point, you've had enough sample size, and I'm not saying there hasn't been enough of a sample size, but like that gives you another full month to work with, a month and a half coming out of the All-Star break. And I've said this about all sports. I think all sports trade deadline should be the final month heading in, so that look at the excitement that the NBA has at the trade deadline. And then you have like a month and a half, 2 months left, and then it's like people forget about the trades and they tune back in with the playoffs. If you do the trade deadline at the end of August for the Major League Baseball, look at the excitement that the trade deadline generated yesterday. People are going to tune in. They're going to want to see some of the new faces and the big names in their new jersey. They'll watch a series, and then they'll kind of check out and maybe check back in come playoff time. But if it's a sprint to the finish line, you make this move because we're within 4 games and we have 1 month to go, 1 month to make this final push. I think that would make it even more exciting, and it would benefit the back end of the season as well. I just don't like the placement of the trade deadline. I absolutely hate it. I think for one, it's awkward. 2 weeks after you have a week off for the All-Star break, come back, play a week and a half, and then these teams have to make these big decisions. I'm just not a big fan of that, especially with how weird teams are coming out of the All-Star break to begin with. I would really make a push to move the trade deadline back to the end of August, or at least the last week in August, and then set up a sprint to the finish line as far as that's concerned. It's not the end of the world where they have the trade deadline. I don't like it. You make all these moves, and you still have 2 months basically left of the season. I'm not a fan of that.
The trade deadline used to be later in the year. I'm not entirely sure why they moved it up, but it definitely used to be, I don't know if at the end of August, but definitely in the middle of August, a couple weeks later than it is now. But I think you're probably right. I think that would definitely make it more interesting. I think it's probably earlier in the year to give these new guys time to mesh with their team before you get to the playoffs. If you're a real competitor and you're adding a couple guys to the lineup, you need time to mesh together with the locker room, with the lineup, before you go in to make a playoff push. So I think it makes sense in that sense. But for fans and everything like that, for teams at the lower end of the table in the wild card rankings and everything like that, it would definitely make it a little bit more interesting for them to buy when you have a better grasp of where the whole league lies, where you lie within the mix, everything like that. I think you probably see some more bigger name trades from teams that find out that they're out of it in the next week or two. Casey, before the show, was talking about the next 2 series for the Reds and how if they win those, he would have wished they bought before. And I think if you would have been able to play a couple more series and the team could have made a run and got closer, that would have been more interesting, and maybe the Reds would have added more pieces. Or if you lose those 2 series, you probably trade a Jonathan India or something like that. So it would definitely be interesting and make bigger moves, but I'm not really sure how much of a change it would make.
Yeah, I mean, to clarify, I would have loved them to just go one direction or the other, like just lose or just win, right? What they did was like middling, and it just put them in an awkward spot. And they've for me, it feels like they've struggled to navigate where they should be at this moment. So that's where I was coming from that standpoint. Of course, I would rather see them win than lose. So that's why I brought that up. But yeah, I mean, like, they're starting to separate themselves from the bottom of the NL Central, and it's like, man, you would have liked to maybe seen them try to make a move. Like, I don't know what the move would have been. I don't think they should go and make a huge splash and sacrifice everything, but just getting like one extra guy to really bring like another solid hitter onto this roster would have been great to see. Now, I know it's revisionist history, but that's just how I am as a fan, I guess. I don't know. Like, they're in a tough spot, I feel like.
At some point, the Reds have to sit here and say, all right, we have to be aggressive. At some point. It can't constantly be. Like, it'll never be a perfectly painted picture of, man, we're going to have talent now and a ton of depth in the farm system. I don't think with the way that they operate, I don't know if that world exists. Am I wrong in saying that? I don't think a world ever exists where the Reds are going to be World Series contenders with the main roster with a lot of depth in the farm system. I don't know if that exists, and I don't think it ever will exist for the Cincinnati Reds. So that's why I get so frustrated with the with the responses of, okay, well, we kind of have to find that balance. You don't want to, mortgage the future for right now. But a couple years ago, the guys that are on the roster now that you said you didn't want to mortgage the future for these guys, they're up and it's now. These guys are the now. And what are you going to do to help these guys win now? You didn't want to get rid of these guys years ago because you wanted them to win now. Well, now they're up on the roster. Now you have Ellie. Now you have Spencer Steer. Matt McClain's going to be coming back, hopefully. You have Friedel. You have a lot of these guys that you said years ago you didn't want to trade because of X, Y, and Z. Well, now they're here. You can't keep doing that whole, well, we can't trade these guys because they're part of our future. Well, if the future is constantly developing you so you could be really, really good to be a part of a sub-500 team year in and year out, I just don't like at some point, and at what point do the Reds say, all right, we'll figure out that problem later, but we got to be aggressive now. I'm not advocating that this was the year to do it. All I'm saying is every year it seems to be the same thing. Last trade deadline, I kind of supported it. I get why you didn't want to mortgage the future for last year. Let's wait to see if there's something there. Kind of supporting it this year. I don't really know what's there. But at the same time, they have the pitching. And you see when this team, when they get going offensively, they don't have a lot of depth in that lineup. But at the same time, it's like Friedel, difference maker. Matt McClain can go back and be a difference maker. Obviously, you have Ellie De La Cruz. It's not like when you get into the postseason, you start flirting with the postseason, it's not about who you've been the whole year. It's about who you are at this particular moment. I don't care that they're 5 games under 500 or were at a certain point. Like, all I care about is the fact that, okay, they have the pitching. You go get that power bat. You all of a sudden spark some life into this team. Now we're talking about who they are now, not who they've been since April. At some point, they have to be aggressive. I'm not advocating that it should have been this trade deadline, but I feel like we're going to be disappointed in the offseason for the same reasons. They're not going to make any aggressive trades to better this roster because of the future. They're not going to spend any serious cash because, well, we got to hold it to pay the guys now that are leading us to below 500. Like, that's not a shot at them. At some point, they have to be aggressive. I don't know when that point is, but we can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over.
I think that's the take that most people have, but I generally do disagree as a fan of a small market team.
We had a good thing going.
I would always just bring guys up and continue to build the farm and trade and build the farm and trade. It's what the Guardians and the Rays have been doing, and obviously they haven't won a World Series, but they've been competitive for a long, long time. I think the way you do that is when you have the guys like Ellie, McClain, and Steer come up and you love your core, you trade the guys like India and maybe next year or year after you trade guys like Abbott when Chase Burns and Lauder come up, and you keep moving on these guys who are solid major league pieces who just aren't at the top of your lineup and bolstering the farm system when their value's high. And then the farm is good and you keep bringing guys up, and you can't extend everybody because we don't have the money. It's just not practical in baseball. So when the inevitability of, 3 of these 5 guys in the core going somewhere else, you need to have guys in the farm that can fill those slots. And I understand that people just want to win right now, but I think it's more important to be competitive over the next decade than it is to just have 1 year where you win 90 games and make the playoffs and win a series. And it's not easy to say that when you haven't won a playoff series in 30 years. I mean, you want to win a playoff series. Everyone wants to see the Reds advance. I'm not saying that I don't. There's nothing I'd love more than to see the Reds win a playoff series. But I think it's more important to look at a big picture than looking at every season individually, and I think that's what the Reds have been doing. I still have faith in this core and in this GM. Nick Krall has done a good job of building what we have. I'm not super thrilled with how either of these last 2 trade deadlines have went, but I still do have faith in the direction of the team, and I think they're staying true to the method that they've said, and that's what's important to me. If you believe in what you're doing, don't just be reactionary and you have a bad year and you dump and everything. If they believe in what they have, and maybe they didn't trade Nick Martinez because they think he's going to accept that team option or player option next year. And if you can have Nick Martinez on this team next year, that's probably better than anything you'd get for him. So I do have faith in the direction of this team, and I wouldn't necessarily trade the farm for a star player really ever, unless you're in a situation like you are the Guardians this year and you're the 3rd best team in the league or something like that. Then in that situation you make a big move. But even if we were, say, where the Brewers are this year, I wouldn't have wanted to go get a massive player just because we realistically wouldn't be able to keep them all.
We've just seen this team go through 90 loss, 100 loss seasons, and I've always been of the mindset of, all right, I can eat that, but what's the payoff? And I just don't want the payoff to be sub 500.
That's fair.
For even 5 straight years. What I don't want is, and I'm not there yet, but it's like what I don't want is, well, Kenner, at least they're in the playoff hunt. Remember how bad it was when they were losing 100 games? Yeah, I remember that. But like that was supposed to be a sacrifice as a fan of a small market team where, okay, we're going to have to eat it for a bit, but man, we're going to benefit from the Ellie and all those pieces coming together. The problem with that is I don't want another Joey Votto, and this is not a shot at Joey Votto. I don't want the front office distracting us with the shiny toy. Hey, I know we're losing, but Joey Votto, look at Joey Votto. Man, Joey Votto's great. Joey Votto, Joey Votto, Joey Votto. And at a certain point, if you want to know why I think some fans started to resent Joey Votto, is because I think that the front office, and it wasn't Joey Votto's fault why they were bad. I do think the front office was kind of leaning on the fact that fans were just going to blame Joey Votto's contract for why they couldn't be competitive, when I blame the front office. They should have looked at, man, we have one of the best players in baseball. We should do everything we can to build around him. They didn't do that. And I don't want to see that happen with the generational talent in Elly De La Cruz. I don't want them to be cramming down Reds fans' throats of Elly De La Cruz. Man, look at Elly. Elly's fast. Steal record. Look what he's doing on the base paths. Man, he has power. He just hit out of the ballpark. Look how fast he is. Did I mention his steals? I don't want to be distracted by all of that while the team just continues to struggle to barely make or miss a wild card, get knocked out in the first round because of all these deficiencies, when they could have been aggressive for many, many years. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. Jacob has his way. I'm in the way of like, hey, I'm willing to risk a couple bad seasons to go all in and to feel like we have a shot. But again, being a fan of a Reds team is it's murky waters, man.
It is.
It's murky waters, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I mean, it's tough being a fan of a small market team because you see teams like the Dodgers every single year go out and buy these phenomenal players like every single year.
They spent $1 billion in free agency and then get one of the top pitchers on the trade market.
Like last year they had Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, and this year they added Shohei. So, I mean, obviously it's tough being a fan of a small market team because you just can't do that. But I think the Reds are taking the right approach. They know they have the guys. They know they have the core for success in the future. I think this year is kind of a step back with all the injuries that those guys have faced, and that's kind of held them back. They haven't seen the field much at all. But I think kind of the deceptive thing right now is I know Reds fans are like, oh, this team's hot. They've won 5 out of the last 7. We're going to make some ground on the wild card. Why not go buy a guy that can help this team win and make a push for that wild card? But at the same time, you've gone won 5 out of 7 games the last week, and you haven't gained any ground in the standings. I believe they were 4.5 games out a week ago, and now they're 5. So I think that Nick Krall and the front office have kind of seen that, yeah, this team's good and we could make a push, but also this team could be better next year once we get all these guys back. So we don't want to jeopardize spending a bunch of money or trading prospects that could come up next year because we want to stick to the process that we have. And we're very confident that process is going to work, like Jacob said, so why stray away from it for 1 year where the wild card seems attainable, but at the end of the day, it's probably not likely.
The other thing about teams like the Dodgers, other than just money, is they can recover from bad moves. If the Reds trade prospects for a big name and it doesn't work out, this team will be screwed for a decade. The Dodgers trade O'Neal Cruz for a pitcher you never see. And O'Neal Cruz is a great young shortstop for the Pirates, and you don't even think about it because they just go sign Mookie Betts and go sign Shohei to cover the holes. I mean, even teams like the Cubs have made some big signings over the last few years that haven't worked out, and it doesn't really matter because they just put more money into the team to cover it up. Mm-hmm. If the Reds make a move and the star player falls flat on his face when he comes to Cincinnati, the team could be screwed for quite literally a decade.
I mean, they got Steer and they got a lot of these big names from a Tyler Mahle deal.
Right.
So I agree with you, but I don't because but you got to count. You do got to count on everything going right.
Exactly.
You gamble, it doesn't work. You trade pieces away, you start over. We saw the rebuild after the 2010s run. That one failed. It did not go well. They waited too long to move on from the Fraziers and the Bruces and the Phillips and those guys, and it just didn't go well. This rebuild went really well as far as resetting the foundation, and these guys developed pretty damn quickly. But now it's like you got to have that happy beat. You got to complement it with some outside pieces, but whatever their direction is going to be is key. I see people in the chat. Kinner hates Votto. Molly says Kinner dislikes Votto. Justin Toll says, I've never heard a Reds fan root against a Reds player. I can't tell if there's sarcasm in that.
There is.
Let's see. I think I saw another one. Harrow said, I think that's his name. I'm not really sure. But something about no one was against Joey Votto. That's not true.
Yeah, I think
that's not true.
Pretty large faction of Reds fans that aren't huge Votto fans.
If I'm a Reds fan, I would rather this plan and this core not work than completely abandoning the process that they've built up and vision that they've had just to buy a guy like Luis Robert this year to make a push. Like I'd rather see the process that I have begun to think is actually going to work fail than just see the process
I believe
away.
the process has worked. The process has worked.
It has.
But it's
I think
what
the
got you
process
in.
has worked with flying
Totally.
colors.
But I don't
Totally.
think the process. I don't think the process's end game has never included adding. That's all.
Correct.
So at what point do you do that?
I don't think you ever add a big name, ever.
I
That's
think
my thing with the Reds. I think you supplement the roster. You trade for guys that are middle of the pack at the deadline.
So not your Luis Roberts. So that year
You trade for like Lane Thomas, like the Guardians did this year.
Lane
Exactly
Thomas.
what the Guardians did. You trade for Lane Thomas, who's a very exciting young player, who's a great defender with great speed and isn't in a protected lineup, so his value's a little lower. And you don't give up a whole lot for him because he's not a huge name. And you hope that when you put him next to these better players, he plays better. That's the kind of guy I would continue to buy. Not all the way down at Austin Slater, but certainly not all the way up at Luis Roberts, somewhere in the middle.
So like the year that they went after, obviously, Castellanos. It was about a $15 million a year guy. At that time, I know he played very well for the Reds, and he played himself into a huge contract. But they got him at that time at about $15 million a year. Moustakas, they got at $12.5. Now, I know Moustakas did not work out. I don't like how that played out, but that was a good signing. At that time, that was still a good signing.
Those are the types of signings I love.
I guess my point is that. I know we keep bringing up the bigger names, but Castellanos was a solid name. Moustakas was a solid name.
Candelaria.
The solid names.
Yeah.
And more of those. And Candelaria is
France.
still trying to shake off that damn April. Like, that April it's not like it was a slow April. It was a horrendous April.
For sure.
No doubt about it. All right. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll finally hear from Nick Krall on the other side when he responded to the media. Then we got a clip from we got a clip from Chatterbox Reds. We'll get to all of that coming up. More off the bench next. Oh, hi. My bad. Someone made a Krispy Kreme joke, and I was just trying to figure out if that was about me.
They're saying I'm glazing over here by saying people don't like Votto. I mean, I don't think that's a crazy take.
No, first of all, I don't think the majority of fans don't like Votto, but you guys are delusional if you don't think that there was a loud pocket of people that were basically blaming him. And I don't blame Votto. I blame the Reds for basically putting him on an island because it was a mixed signal. When you gave Joey Votto that big-time contract, it signaled, oh, man, they're investing in a star player. Look at them. They're going all out. And then what do they do after that? They didn't really do a whole hell of a lot. The next big contract that we argued was what? It wasn't even, it was the Cueto debate and the Homer Bailey debate. It's like Homer Bailey scared them off of spending any money off of that. But no, they paid Votto all that money. And then they they made a non-small market move by paying Joey Votto that big-time contract. And then when things didn't go well after that, they try to hide back in their small market excuse hole, and then everyone just blamed Joey Votto. Joey Votto was blamed a lot for why the Reds couldn't navigate through that rebuild because they couldn't afford anybody else because of Joey Votto when that wasn't the case at all. The Reds didn't help him out at all. So you can't, and so to Jake's point, I guess stick to a plan. You can't be wishy-washy. Giving Joey Votto that max contract, what that signaled was, oh, look, we're spending money. We're going all out or all in. Then they went all in with spending money on Joey Votto, and then they just dipped their toe in the water the rest of the way. And then what did everyone try to do? Blame Votto. Votto was a character that a lot of people did blame during that time. I am here to tell you, I was not one of those. I applauded the Reds when they did that because I do believe the Reds would have got absolutely destroyed had they let Votto go. And I do believe that's going to happen coming up. The Reds, by the way, when you look at Nick Lodolo, you look at Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, one of these guys, more than one of these guys, I mean, we're already seeing it with Jonathan India. When Jonathan India won Rookie of the Year, I never once would have thought in a million years that we'd be talking about the Reds moving on from Jonathan India. But yet here we are. There's a good chance they're going to move on from him this offseason. And I do think we're not going to keep all of these guys. The Reds will not pay for all of these guys. They're going to keep saying, well, he's really good. Jonathan India is good. But look at the middle infielders we have coming up through the system. A lot of these guys will continue to be pushed out, rinse, cycle, repeat to yours. I don't like that, but I understand it. But it's trying to find that middle ground as far as that goes. But yeah, no, Votto, there was a good chunk of fans. Right or wrong, there was a good chunk of fans who blamed him.
And I think that's just kind of the reality of every sports team everywhere. The big star player, if he doesn't win championships, there's people that don't like him, and it's anywhere. Jimmy just said in the chat that there's people in Detroit who didn't like Miguel Cabrera.
Oh,
How
yeah.
could that even be possible?
Yeah. Oh, because he signed a massive contract and set us back a bunch of years.
I get it, but like he's a generational player.
Oh, one of the best
of
red-handed
of all
hitters ever.
time. Yeah.
You said Joey Votto's a generational player?
No, I'm
Yes,
saying
but-
if people are giving pushback about people not liking Votto, well, there were people in Detroit that didn't like Miguel Cabrera because who is one of the best right-handed hitters of all time. So I'm pretty sure that there are definitely some people that didn't like Votto.
People, I told Elliot I would never break out my Votto take in his absence, so I will save that for when he gets back. That's my gift to Elliot as
fair.
far as that.
I think
Just clarifying, Votto is also a generational player.
I don't think he's generational.
I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
First ballot? Oh, I definitely don't think he's first ballot Hall of Famer.
I think so.
And no, you can argue. It's okay.
No, it's fine.
It's okay. You can argue.
It's fine.
I love Votto, but I don't. I mean, is he a household name around Major League Baseball?
I think he should be. I think he should have 2 MVPs,
Yes.
maybe 3.
64 WAR.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I know, but as we've talked about, there's a lot more non-nerds that follow baseball than nerds.
Not that vote on the Hall of Fame.
What?
Not that vote on the Hall of Fame.
All right, fair.
I think Votto will make the Hall of Fame.
First ballot's definitely a debate, but I think he's certainly a Hall of Fame.
Oh, Hall of Fame. I'm not going to die on that hill.
Yeah,
But the first
no,
ballot
fair.
one, I was like,
That's
you know.
definitely room for debate there. His OBP is the thing that takes it over the edge for me. He gets on base better than anyone.
You see how bad he is with the Blue Jays, though? God, get him out.
Didn't
Get
even
him
make it out of single A.
Oh, Canada. All right. Nick Krall addressed the media once the trade deadline had come and passed yesterday. And, he was asked a lot about a lot of the moves that they made. Why didn't they move on from Nick Martinez? Talk about some of the moves that he made, Jonathan India. He was asked a lot more about some of the moves that they didn't make more than the moves that they did. I don't think any one of us, it was a solid move moving on, from their opening day starter. I get that, but there were names that we were anticipating them moving on from that they did not. They did move on from Sims. So here's Nick Krall. It's a couple-minute clip of him just addressing the media yesterday following the trade deadline.
Start with Frankie, the thought process in moving him and what you guys were able to get in return.
First off, just moving him, it opens up a spot. It brought us a guy back long-term that we liked in Joey Weimer. Bringing back Jake Junis is another guy that can help our club this year. But overall, it was just we wanted to bring somebody in that was more now and for the future as opposed to just now.
And Lucas Sims today?
Yeah, Lucas was. We had a bullpen that was kind of full. We've got a lot of options players. We've got some guys coming back from injury. We knew we were going to have to make a move over the next week or so, and being able to get something for him versus just losing him on him or somebody else on waivers. We thought this was the best idea. We were able to put Zulueta in the bullpen, and he's thrown well in the big leagues so far. So it gives us a chance to get him a look in the big leagues this season.
The goals leading into this deadline, what were they, and do you feel like you achieved them, or at least a lot of them?
Yeah, look, our goal is not to just dismantle this team. We did that in 22 when we had to go through a full rebuild. This is about, hey, how can we continue to push forward right now, but also, look at it from a long-term outlook.
Were there any other moves that you felt might go down here before the deadline, or that you thought you were closing in on?
Yeah, there were one or two that we thought we were getting close.
Did you just run out of time, or you didn't like the terms and you decided to walk away, or was it just you ran out of time?
No, it was more the teams decided to go in a different direction than they liked the offer somewhere else better.
I know you've been asked this a few times over the last couple of weeks, but the market for Jonathan, how was it? Was it not there, or you guys just decided he's a piece you want to keep?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on the market, but at the same time, he's a player that's been an impactful player for this team, and he brings a lot of qualities to this team right now, and hopefully gives us our best chance to win this year.
How big of a
All right, so that was Nick Krall addressing the media once the deadline had come and gone yesterday. And a lot of people had various opinions about his response as far as that's concerned. And first of all, I did forget, according to the CBA, they are not allowed to talk about the market. So earlier when I said that, I was wrong on that. They cannot comment on the market of a player. And I did. What did you take away, Jacob, when he was asked about Jonathan India, when he said, I can't comment on the market, but he's a key piece of this clubhouse? I still wonder if, he's letting the fans know, hey, we're always going to take a listen to offers for Jonathan India. But, this is the third time where they have not pulled the trigger. You had last trade deadline where people thought they would move on from India. You had the offseason that people thought that they would move on from India. And now this trade deadline that people thought they would move on from India. Do they ever move off from India? I know that sounds like an open-ended question. Like, of course they will at some point in his career. But, like, is this a part of the plan? It doesn't sound like at times where although they're very open and going to always listen to the offers, it just feels like they're not aggressively trying to move them. Because if they did want to make a splash to reload the farm system, if they did want to make a splash to maybe go, because this didn't have a lot of prospect trades at this draft, by the way. There was a lot of MLB for MLB guys. They could have gone that route if they really wanted to go against what we had talked about earlier, being aggressive to add a weapon. Now, bottom line is at the end of the day, another opportunity to move on from Jonathan India has come and passed, and they didn't pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, all the conversations in the offseason were that India is not a part of the future. They were trying him out at every different position, and then we've seen the injuries take place that forced him back to second base every day, and he's had the best season of his career. So that continues to complicate things a little bit, but I don't necessarily think that it should. I think you should continue to put all your eggs in one basket, and that's this core working out. Because if Matt McClain doesn't work out at second base, sure, Jonathan India is a fine piece to have there. But I think you kind of just need to bank on it working. It's how small market teams operate. You kind of just have to hope. And I think we've gotten to a point now where we have the pieces where hoping is possible. So I don't know. I still have faith that they're going to move India, whether it's to a different position or move him to a different team in the offseason. I would be shocked if he's an infielder next year. I guess at second base, I could see him playing first or third a little bit, but I think we'll see him in the outfield. I think we'll see him DHing, and I think ultimately we're going to see him moved, whether it's next deadline or at the end of the season. Well, I guess at the end of the season his contract's up next year. So next deadline is, I guess, when I would have circled for him to be moved, because it was a 2-year extension to avoid arbitration this year, and next year will be the last one. And if McClain's healthy and proving he can play like we hope McClain can play, India's probably not playing a whole lot of games. So I would move him then, I guess, but I said we could move him at last deadline. I said we should move him this deadline, and I guess I'm just going to preemptively say we should move him next deadline, and I'll probably be here the day after talking about how we didn't. So I don't know. I don't really understand. My thing is just what is he? What is he going to be to the team? Because if someone was going to trade you for a starting second baseman and he's not going to be that for the Reds, how did you not take that offer? So we're never going to know what the offers were, what other teams wanted for India, but we saw some of the other stuff that people were getting value-wise for position players, and it would have been nice to have some of that return for Jonathan India. I don't know. We'll see. It comes down to health. McClain seems to be trending back relatively soon, maybe this year. So we'll see what happens with that. If there's organizational lack of confidence in Matt McClain returning to form or returning at all, then you certainly don't move Jonathan India. So maybe that is at play as well. I'm still crossing my fingers that we get some value for him, but at this point, if we didn't move him at this deadline, I think he's just going to walk at the end of his contract.
In the chat, Mr. Mo says, I don't understand why we would bank on McClain when he's been unhealthy more than healthy. I'm glad someone has pointed that out, only because it's not that I'm down on McClain by any means, but I do think we are putting way too much stock into this idea that a guy that has played significantly less games than all the other core guys is just going to come back and just be who he was, when Spencer Steer was not who he was last year and had to get back into a groove. Ellie has been very consistent, but again, it took him a little bit to get really rolling this season as well. Like, this idea that Matt McClain just comes back and all of a sudden is just an instant impact guy, I don't buy into that either, as far as that's concerned. And, like, we had question marks coming into the season, the sophomore slumps for these guys. You know, did we just see, Jonathan India was so great his rookie year, wins Rookie of the Year. Injuries played a little bit of a role, but it took a couple years, and this is the best he's looked since. So this idea that Matt McClain is just the missing puzzle piece, this is why I kept saying at the beginning of the year, too, this idea that the Reds are Matt McClain away from being a playoff team, I just didn't put a lot of stock into that. But it's one of the few people I've seen question the idea and give a little pushback. Why are we putting all this stock into Matt McClain coming back and just all of a sudden being the instant push and change that this team needs?
My thing is I'm just completely fine gambling on that. I think as the Reds, he's the best. I think he's the best player on the team outside of Ellie, and I think he's the most likely extension candidate. If I had to guess, Matt McClain's going to be on this team longer than anyone else on this core. So I'm going to put all my eggs in the Matt McClain basket and just bank on him being good. I mean, I understand the sample size. He got hurt last year as well. The sample size was a little bit smaller than you liked. It was still 90 games and 400 plate appearances, and he hit 290 with a 350 OBP. I know we talked about Noelvi Marte's stats last year, the whole offseason. Then he came back and he's flat out stunk. So I know Elliott's probably going to clip that, but he's flat out stunk since he came back. And That sample size was about a third of what we saw from Matt McClain last year. So I'm much more confident in what McClain's going to be, and a lack of a slump when he comes back, unless it is injury related, which sure there's something to expect with that. He had labrum surgery, so obviously there's going to be a level of time that he needs to battle to come back and get back to form. But I'm fine banking on a guy that hit 290, 357, 507 in 400 plate appearances his first time up. I understand the injuries are a concern, but if he's hurt, I'm not sure how good this team's going to be anyway. So I'm fine banking on him.
Another one that came in, I'm sorry that I lost it. It was something about Spencer Steer, how he didn't have a sophomore slump. Keep in mind, he's playing very, very well right now. There was a point early in the season where we were starting to question, oh man, has he lost it? Because he was not playing well early on in the season. Obviously, it's a long season. I'm not going to punish him for that. I'm just saying initially from where our concerns were early on as far as that's concerned. All right, Chatterbox Reds last night, once the dust had settled after the trade deadline, Trace and Nick Kirby were kind of recapping the mini little press conference that Nick Krall had with the media. Here was Trace's concern on Chatterbox Reds about some of the explanations, if you will, that Nick Krall gave for the moves or lack thereof that were made at the deadline.
I seen Evan in the chat. He wants me to. What is Nick Krall supposed to say? I would just, and again, this is maybe semantics on my end, but I would just like him to be like, guys, listen, there's a lot of moving parts at the deadline. I think it's relatively obvious that we were looking to deal some guys that might not be here next year, but ultimately at the end of the day, other teams are doing the same thing. It turned out that they decided to go a different route. I just don't think he needs to lead off the conversation with a 15-minute sermon about how they have a run differential and they still want to keep this sack. Like you just had Santion as the starting pitcher tonight. Like, let's not play that dumb about this. That's all. And again, to be very clear, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's just me looking at a guy straight up lying, and it just for some reason bothers me. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day, and I don't want to.
And that's the big thing about these press conferences when general managers or front office personnel address the media. They have pre-scripted answers that they are going to feed you no matter what the real answers are. And that's what, to me, I don't like about modern media today. And we'll step away for a few moments because I'm curious your guys' thoughts on what Trace had to say about the explanation from Nick Krall. What your just final thoughts on Nick Krall's explanation? I know we've waited on a ton, reaction to the trade deadline, the Reds' decision or non-decisions, whatever you want to call it, at the deadline. We got more Reds talk coming up. They do have a chance to sweep the Cubs later on tonight. We'll get into some college football, NFL stuff coming up around the corner, more Bengals camp news. We'll get to all of that coming up. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, and Jacob with you here, and it's our post-trade deadline edition of the show. Shout out to Nick Kirby and Chatterbox Reds. 4 hours, it was 4+ hours yesterday of the trade deadline special, and then did even more in the post game with as far after the Cubs and Reds game last night. So shout out to Nick. I mean, that was an Iron Man competition yesterday as far as that's concerned. So congratulations to him. But again, providing great Reds content, baseball content for the Chatterbox fans and listeners. So we appreciate him and appreciate you guys tuning in and supporting that. I think they said at one point they had 300+ people at one point, just hanging on everything they were saying, just with instant reaction to all the stuff that was going on. And it's tough to find a hub like that to go and get all instant reaction to that. ESPN couldn't keep up with it. All they were doing is taking ESPN Jeff Passan's tweets and just embedding them into a updated article on ESPN. That's very lazy. But that's the big network out there doing that. That's how much movement was going on yesterday, no doubt about it. So you just heard Trace, who wasn't feeling Nick Krall's explanation for some of the moves or lack thereof that was made at the deadline yesterday. Curious, before I dive into this, did you have a problem with it? Did you have a problem with Nick Krall's explanations for some things?
Would I have liked him to be more blunt about what happened to the deadline? Sure. I would love more information. Every fan wants more information. I also understand why he had the quotes he had. I mean, you can't just talk about everything you did, every team you called, every move you almost made. You're giving up, relationships you have with other GMs. You're maybe spoiling plans for the future if you're talking about that in the media, about something that just, barely fell through or something like that. I don't know. I didn't necessarily have a huge problem with it. Would I have liked something different? Yeah, I think everyone would have liked a more clear response. But no, I didn't really have a problem with it per se.
So sorry, I was reading the chat keeps distracting me. You guys are good at keeping up with it. I read the chat. My ADD gets the best of me. No doubt about it. Jimmy, problem with the response from Nick Krall at all? Was he forthcoming? Did you? I was surprised that Trace was as down on what he had to say in that press conference yesterday. But did you take away anything from it?
No, I feel like I usually never expect those guys to say very much because at the end of the day, it's their call. It's not the fans' call. So they're the ones that are going to make those decisions, and no matter what, it is what it is. And I think that I don't expect him to tell me as a fan the reasoning behind every single move, why one thing didn't work out, who they were looking to shop where. I'm sure he was trying to shop some of those guys, and it just fell through. And I think
Tony Santillan started the game last night.
Right.
They were obviously trying to move Nick Martinez, and something fell through. Otherwise, Nick Martinez would have started the game.
This goes back to my big point about this started with the Jamar Chase situation with the Bengals. Now, before you guys get annoyed and say, "Oh, here's Kenner trying to find a way to bring everyone down," no, this isn't really about Jamar Chase. It's about how the Jamar Chase thing has been handled. It's about how the Cincinnati Reds handle media. I just think that the old school way of handling media needs to be updated a bit because I think fans are more locked in and in tune with what's going on than ever before. The amount of access that we as fans have through social media, through the internet, through all this stuff that's been around for quite some time, we're all very locked in on what's going on. We're not that silly. We're not that dumb. We know what's going on. You just talked about it. We're able to connect the dots. It's not as if we're so clueless that we don't know that, okay, Santillan on the mound last night wasn't an indicator that they couldn't commit to Martinez being on the mound to start the game like they normally do in these types of situations. That was a true indicator right there. Why don't you just acknowledge the fact that these fans are very smart and we know what's going on to a certain extent. We're not in the boardroom. We're not in your meetings. We don't know how to run a team necessarily, but at the bare minimum, at least meet us at the bare minimum. Stop talking down to the fan base. I think the disconnect that fans have with all franchises is the idea that we're just dumb and that we don't understand what's going on. I think we are all intelligent enough to comprehend and understand that you tried to move Martinez and you couldn't get it done. Okay? That was it was the result. We're going to have an opinion on the result no matter what. So you might as well try to soften the blow by just being honest with everyone and saying, we did look to move him, it fell through. Boom. It's as simple as that. Right? It's as simple as that. So I do understand why people are getting frustrated with that. You look at the Jamar Chase situation. Stop lying to your fans. The Reds need to stop lying to their fans. The Bengals, stop lying to your fans. Stop telling us that it's a plan. Just say it's contract related, and we would have, I don't even think it's being talked about as much as what it is, but we keep, the non-Bengals fans keep mocking it because it's Zach Taylor's secret plan. Like it's Space Jam, and he has that water bottle of the secret sauce, right? Like what are we doing? Just say, yes, we met with Jamar Chase and his team. They do want to start. He wants a certain contract. He wants a certain number. He wants this, that, and the other, and we're working on that. And until we get it done, he's going to sit out of camp. Boom. We know that's what's going on. You continuing to try to act like we're crazy for assuming that stuff is offensive to me. The Reds trying to act like we wouldn't comprehend it and be smart enough to understand that you just it just fell through. Just talk to us like we're normal. I can't stand that about media or about these teams anymore. You look at the Reds when they brought who's the player that juiced Noave Marte. When he comes back. And there was he was just open season though. He was just kind of letting it loose. Hey, I don't know how it got there, right? There just seems to be no plan on how to talk to the media, how to talk to the fans. That stuff drives me crazy. I just think transparency is key. And I think these teams, when you try to say less, you end up saying way more than you actually think you're saying.
I think it'd be nice. Again, I go back to it'd be nice if teams were more transparent, but I don't expect it. I don't think fans are necessarily owed a glimpse into the locker room or anything like that. I think coaches and GMs and everything saying, we're doing what we're doing, or, we're on to the next one, or whatever other cliche you hear all the time. It's annoying, and certainly as a fan, you wish you heard more. But I think it's fans overstepping to say that they expect or are deserved more information about a team. You're deserved, 162 games if you're a Reds fan, and that's about it. It's, whatever else they do in the facility, that's what they do in the facility. I don't think they need to explain how they evaluate players or what's going on with contract or anything. It's certainly not part of their job description. It would be great to have a better insight, and certainly some teams do, and that's why teams with quieter owners or quieter coaches or anything like that get annoyed, is because you see other teams who are very transparent about the happenings within their facility. But as a fan of two organizations who have been notoriously close to the vest, I've just gotten used to it and become numb, I think.
So Blackmore in the chat, in all caps, by the way, he forgot to turn his caps off. Silly guy. I hate when that happens. Basically just, why would you tell everyone about trying to trade away a player and it fell through? I bet that would be great for clubhouse morale, ... Kinner stinks. Well, Blackmore, I'm going to tell you why you stink, okay? You stink because I think you would be smart enough to comprehend that you don't think Nick Martinez figured he would be moved to. You don't think these athletes are robots that have no feelings or emotion. You think they don't have social media. You don't think that they follow the game. You don't think that they follow the sport. You don't think that they comprehend and understand that, yeah, I'm probably being traded too. Why am I not going to be thrown out on the mound tonight? Oh, I'm probably being traded. Okay, I wasn't traded. It must have fell through. You don't think that these guys are smart enough to connect these dots? I mean, clubhouse morale, are you kidding? This team has not won a playoff series in decades. You want to talk to me about clubhouse morale? Like, give me a break with this stuff. We as fans are way more intelligent that we can have an adult conversation with the front office and not lie to us. It's as simple as that. Let's not get all outraged and start typing in all caps like you're Roger, okay? We don't need to do that. You're smarter than that. I would like to think. So don't come at me, call me a clown, and call me names and all this stuff. Have your opinion, I have mine. But it's as simple as that. But this idea that clubhouse morale is why all of a sudden Nick Krall didn't come to the media and say we tried to trade him, but it fell through. We know you're trying to trade him, which is why you had a plan to tell the media why you didn't try to trade him. It doesn't make any sense. Simple as that. Simple as that. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. Casey has some ad reads and some house cleaning items to get to. We'll have more off the bench next.
All right. Let's get into some ad reads. Let's see. Pawnee Water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. I, for one, drink this water just about every day when it's in the office. I need it to get through my day. Wish it was around more often in all the other stores, because I do think that it has a better tasting water than most waters. So
all waters.
All waters.
Most waters implies that there's a better tasting water out there, which is not the case.
That's not the case at all. It is pretty much all water.
I mean, every other water I've ever seen has multiple ingredients on the side. You look at the side of a Pawnee water bottle. What does it have on there?
Water.
Just water. That's
Just
right.
Water.
And a little bit of natural limestone filtration.
That's right. I mean, how else are you going to get all those other ingredients out? It's pure
Of course.
water. It's pure water.
Nothing better.
Nothing better. Encore Technologies. The Cincinnati Reds report is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, we deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world. From mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions, we help businesses enhance efficiency and
productivity.
That's right, Jimbo. Visit encore.tech, where your path to innovation begins. There, here, wherever. Check them out. Game Time, our ticketing app. We used it.
We used it last night.
We used it last night to go get into the Reds game. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, and redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And let's just take a look at some of those.
I just opened the app
prices.
and got really excited, Casey.
Did you?
Really excited because you know what's at the top of the list?
FCC.
No, Cincinnati Bengals game a week from Saturday.
Ah.
Oh my gosh, we're so close.
What's the price?
$15.
Ooh.
$15 for Buccaneers at Bengals preseason game. I'm gonna go see those stripes for $15. Guarantee you that right now.
That's not a bad deal. I would take that
$13
deal.
for the Reds tonight. No day game, so no watch along. Maybe I sneak down to the ballpark.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's also, of course, FC tickets for Leagues Cup tomorrow. $16.
Do we hate the Leagues Cup? Do we hate the Leagues Cup? I know that's a thing.
That's what Mike Ackley said.
Mike Ackley hates the Leagues
That's
Cup.
a Mike Ackley thing. I don't know if I hate it or not. I don't think we necessarily enjoy it because it just is a random pause in the middle of the season. But hey, it's more soccer, more FC. Can't complain about that. Luke Combs, Paycor, $52 for Luke Combs tickets. That's not bad. Creed.
Well, hold up. 52 for Luke Combs?
Yeah.
We're at.
Where do you think, Kenner?
Paycor.
No, I know. Like where? Like the seats? Like is it standing room? Like what are we talking here for all? Is it the Friday night seats, the Saturday ticket, or the Saturday concert, the Friday concert?
Well, it's the upper ring.
No, that's fine. Those were going for $150 not too long ago. So that's a hell of a deal. That's what I'm saying.
Well, right now the what is this? This is the stage. Well, there's tickets right on the ground floor, the pit for $149.
Oh, nice, dude. That's
there's some really good tickets right now.
We waited on getting tickets because I'm like, let's just see if the prices start dropping as we get closer. And they are dropping.
Oh, yeah.
And thanks to our ticket sponsor. I like that. I like that.
Game Time's the best. Nothing like Game Time.
Game Time.
Game Time. Love them.
What code should they use if they're going to buy those tickets?
OTB.
That's right.
Oh, I'm going to write that down. What's OTB stand for, guys?
Why don't you take a guess?
Oh, off the bench.
That's right.
That's my guess.
That's a good guess.
Speaking of off the bench, we'll be right back.
We will be right back. Oh, are we done with that? By the way, I do want to give a shout out to Roger. That was not a straight. I was not throwing a straight. Me and Roger are good. I like Roger. I thought Roger hated me at one point because he was talking to me in all caps. And I kept trying to figure out what the hell did I do? Why is he yelling at me? And he goes, I always talk in all caps. So he's all caps Roger. But
he's all caps Roger. How many nicknames do you have for chat members?
I lump everyone in this, just the Bengal Bros. They're just the Bengal Bros are upset with me, whatever. So they're making a big deal about, well, how do we know that he was going to be traded? That's what they're like. We're mad at Nick Krall because he didn't answer a question saying he was going to trade that they weren't going to trade Martinez. When how do we at Off the Bench know they're going to trade Martinez? So that's what they're upset with us about, or me, but I mean all of us. Like we're all assuming he was going to be traded.
Yeah.
The fact that again connecting the dots, and maybe this is why they can do this because people like them believe them. Like, I could see through the front office's BS whenever they're feeding those PR set-up little responses. I just assume everyone could see through it, but apparently not, because these guys are falling hook, line, and sinker for it. Like, well, how do you know that they were going to trade Martinez? What? Maybe we don't. Maybe you're right. Maybe you people that just believe them at everything, maybe that's why these PR responses exist. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if we certainly can't know for sure, so.
Could we get shirts made
they're right.
that say Bengal Bro?
Bengal Bros, Bengal Bros, dude, they're on fire, and that's what you. I'm calling everyone Bengal Bros.
That would be good shirt.
Yeah. All right, we can come back whenever.
All right, give me 1 second.
Everett Henry says, Kinner was trying to cook. I wasn't trying to cook anything. I mean, my opinions just really tick these people off. I don't know. And now Jacob's being quiet over here because he doesn't want to be in the bad crowd. He's distancing himself.
No, I just semi-agree with some of the chat.
About what?
We don't know for sure that they were gonna trade anybody. So to be mad about specific players not being moved, I think is, or not answering questions about specific players is not necessarily where my anger lies with the deadline. That's the only thing.
Okay, so why do you think Martinez wasn't on the mound last night?
My guess would be that they were looking to trade him. Kirby puts in the chat that he thinks Martinez would have been starting yesterday if they had no chance of trading him. And that was my thought as well. I just think putting his quotes in the lens of a specific player is not necessarily the route I would go.
All right, I'm going to believe everything that every team says from now on.
That's also not where I stand.
They had no indication. They had no plans of trading Martinez at all whatsoever. None. I'm going to be like everyone. I'm going to be like the Bengal Bros. I'm just going to believe everything that is said. I'm never going to question it. You know, Jamar Chase, it really is part of a plan. He's so, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to believe every PR statement that is released for the rest of time. Congratulations, Reds, for executing a plan.
It'd be a really
perfectly.
boring show if we just believed PR releases.
No, that's what these people do. That's what they want. But I figured it out. I started this segment saying, why do they keep doing these PR releases that are so vanilla down? Like, these fans can see through it. And that's what I thought, but I'm clearly wrong. We're gullible enough to take everything at face value, and you can't do that with these teams. You just can't. They literally have a PR team that tells them exactly what to say so that they save face when they go to make certain decisions. And I just get offended by when teams do that. I just don't like when they just straight up lie. The Bengals are lying to you about Jamar Chase, and you guys the Bengal Bros are gullible enough to fall for it. That's fine. You do you. I'm not going to fall for it. The Reds, they had no intentions of trading Martinez. I don't believe you, but I'll be like everyone else. I'll believe you. That's fine. I'll play nice. That's fine. I'll just believe them. It is what it is. Is what it is. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. I got to stop reading. I'm going to get distracted even more as far as that's concerned. Let's talk about something else. We done? We done? Reds, Cubs tonight. The Reds get the sweep?
I sure hope so. Lodolo on the mound. So
he's not being traded. No, because he's on the mound. Yeah, it's post-trade dedeadline too. Yeah.
The trade deadline was yesterday, so I think that has more bearing on whether or not Lodolo.
But next year's trade deadline, I mean, he's pitching tonight, so he will not be traded next year. Actually, he won't, but that's besides the point.
Probably not, yeah.
that'd be, yeah. But no, continue. But yeah, Nick Lodolo on the mound. They go for the sweep against the Cubs.
Against our dear friend Meatball Hendricks, Elliot's favorite pitcher in the league, Kyle Hendricks. So sad he's not here for this one, but hopefully we get the win. Lodolo 3.45 ERA. Hendricks right about 6.95. So certainly sets up well for the Reds tonight. Pretty big favorites on the money line, -150. Haven't been that big of a favorite in a little bit now. So it's nice to see that. Hopefully they can get the job done. Sweeping the Cubs would be a phenomenal way to start this second half, because I don't count the National Series, and then we beat the Braves, and now we're onto the Cubs. So it's great.
The Rays.
Yeah, we don't count that either.
Okay.
We only count the good ones.
Fair. Hey, that's a good way to be a fan.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, like, they sweep the Cubs now. Let's just say they sweep the Cubs. Like, what do they got to do because they've been taking us on this whole journey where we buy in and then we check back out. We buy in and then we check back out.
I haven't bought back in some time now.
You what?
I haven't bought back in some time.
Me and Elliot, we keep buying in, and then
Elliot's
been abused. That's why
Elliot has been beaten down. They build him up so high just so he can fall farther. It's honestly sad, and I feel for the kid. But I've found a way over the last couple months to not buy back in, and I think that's a better place to be, and just kind of more realistic with how this team's going to go the rest of the year.
Jimmy doesn't know I'm going to do that. I'm going to put him on the spot. Jimmy,
yeah,
you need to do your best Elliot impersonation.
Of what?
Elliot, what do you think about the Reds at the trade deadline? Elliot, what do you think?
Hold on. Let me think of what he would say.
I did put you on the spot.
I know.
Do you want to think about it, and I can come back to you? We'll come back to you as Elliot.
Yeah, do it again in a couple minutes.
In a couple minutes.
Okay. All right.
Because we're going to send this to our guy Elliot while he's enjoying his vacation.
That's right.
He comes back Monday, by the way, but I do wonder if Elliot was sitting in the chair today, what would his reaction would have been? What did he tweet?
Wait,
let's go to his Twitter.
You can't do this. I'm supposed to do it.
Oh, okay. I was stalling. I was just giving you time. I'm at least going to go to his Twitter and at least pull that up. I want to see what Elliot's response was last night during do you think he was angry?
I would imagine.
Are you?
When is Elliot happy?
Elliot, are you? I was gonna
about
say.
the Reds.
All right, Elliot, you ready? All right. So we've given you our take on the Reds at the trade deadline, but what about Elliot? Elliot, what do you think?
I don't even care anymore. This is abysmal. The Reds are terrible. No move that we're going to make at this deadline is going to make us better for the future. Doesn't even matter. Our sweet prince, Frankie Montas, is gone. I didn't even remember how to say his name. Doesn't matter. I'm done. I'm going to go back to the beach. That's it. I don't care.
It's good.
That's
right. Season dead?
That's pretty good.
The season was dead. What was it? May 24th.
Yeah.
Declared the season dead.
So let's see. What did Elliot tweet last night?
Basically that. So good job, Jimmy.
Yeah. So very well done. So when the Reds talked about how they traded Austin Slater, Elliot said, "What kind of special prize do these two get us? What a joke!" with a bunch of laughing emojis afterwards. So he, let's see, what other reaction? The other 29 GMs when it's time for Nick Krall to offer any current Cincinnati Red they want for prospects. And it's just, yeah. I mean, he was on fire.
He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy.
He was not happy but he'll be calmed down by the time he comes back. No doubt about it.
Hopefully. He's playing a lot of golf, so usually that riles him up. So we'll see.
Is he golfing over at Hilton Head? Not bad. Not bad. All right, we can move on. Again, Reds Cubs coming up later on tonight. Reds going for the sweep. But Elliot, thank you. Appreciate you for giving us a little visit on the show today. He's not even paying attention. Everyone just stare at him.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right, Michigan. So I deal with a lot of Michigan fans doing the show I do in Dayton. They didn't exist for quite some time, but the last couple of years they started coming out of the woodworks a little bit, right? And there's one guy named David Shaw. I mean, he's a big supporter of the show, but I mean, he just gets so pissed off. He gets so angry. Anytime that we bring up the cheating scandal, he brings up the fact that, you know, we need it to be true. We as Buckeye fans, right, that we need the story about them cheating to be true. And I'm like, man, I know delusion exists in every aspect of entertainment, politics, whatever, life, whatever, right? But the amount of delusion that exists amongst Michigan fans is pretty damn impressive. Not going to lie. It's pretty impressive as far as that's concerned. And as I sit here,
is impressive.
It got to the point to where I was like, well, maybe I'm letting my dislike for the Michigan Wolverines get in the way of what actually could potentially come down from the NCAA as far as what power does the NCAA even have. But I've also made the argument many, many times that it doesn't matter if the NCAA comes out with any severe punishment or not, because we don't know the power that they technically have in this particular situation as college athletics has changed. It doesn't change the fact that what they did was cheating and they got caught. And it is what it is at this point. But as I sit here right now, I started to doubt maybe nothing is going to happen. I thought something was going to come out around the Big Ten media days, because that's usually when stuff starts to come out. You know, there's a lot of reporters that have information on these teams and coaches, and they could release it in June, they could release it in July, but they know, or early July, but they know if they just wait till the conference media days, that's when that story is going to get the most buzz. Brett McMurphy. He sat on that Urban Meyer story with Zach Smith. He sat on that for a long time. He sat on that and just conveniently broke it right around the time of Big Ten Media Days. It was conveniently pushed out. So I was waiting for something to come out around that time, and it didn't. But now things are starting to happen. There's reports coming out that the NCAA could be announcing a postseason ban of up to 2 years for Michigan. Now, it may not come into play this upcoming season because the appeals process will prevent that from happening, but 1 to 2 year postseason ban is in play for the team that didn't do anything wrong, that did exactly what every other team does. All right? I mean, that's what's amazing about all of this. And then, wait, there's more, because apparently Central Michigan, remember the role that they played in all of this. You had Connor Stallions, or a guy that appeared to be Connor Stallions, standing on their sideline incognito, wearing sunglasses at night. Who does that? Psychopaths, of course. Connor Stallions there on the sideline of a Central Michigan game. Who just decides they're going to go check out a Central Michigan game for no damn reason? He had a reason, and he was trying to steal the signs of a really, really bad Michigan State team. Makes no sense. But it does sound like people were pushing Central Michigan. You need to have a response. What exactly happened? Why was he on the sidelines? Oh, his name wasn't on the chart. Everyone was accounted for except this one guy. Well, heads started to roll because certain guys and personnel were fired from the Central Michigan staff. So now all of a sudden we're starting to get more and more information. People are starting to be held accountable, and it does appear that at some point Michigan's on their radar. It does appear at some point they will be held accountable for this. I know some people will say they don't care. It's usually Michigan fans. I have to think that everyone should be disgusted with, not just from Buckeye fans, but everyone in general, for the lengths of which they went to pull this stunt off, and it ultimately led to a national championship last year.
I can't for the life of me understand why Michigan doesn't get the same hate the Astros got. They both cheated and won a championship, and it directly affected the outcome of games.
Both silly. Both banging on trash cans, and it's all the same concept. Both really silly stuff.
It's the exact same thing to me. And the national backlash to the Astros was take the trophy away. We hate Manfred for not doing anything, blah, 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 whatever else. And for this, it seems to be who cares now at this point from most of the national media and everything else. So
Yeah.
I don't really understand why. As an Ohio State fan, I think part of it has to do with national Ohio State hate, and people love seeing Michigan getting back on top and that rivalry getting reignited instead of, a 15-year win streak in the middle. But, I think it should be a much, much bigger story. I don't understand why people don't seem to care about a team cheating and winning a national championship because of it. It's a story in any other sport when this happens. I don't understand why it's any different in college football.
Yeah, I don't either. And again, I know you're not a Michigan guy, you're a Notre Dame guy. Casey, I'm curious your thoughts, because that's a good point. I've never looked at it that way. It's no different than what the Astros did. None. The Astros win a World Series. Michigan wins a national championship. In fact, what made it worse was the fact that the Astros won the World Series. What made it worse is that Michigan actually won the national championship. Now, you can, if you want to split hairs and say that the cheating was actually going on during the World Series, that's what made it worse than Michigan, who Michigan fans are delusional enough to think that Connor Stallion's presence on the sideline is what gave them the advantage, not all the work that he did behind the scenes that still gave them the information that they needed to go up against these teams. You're right. The national outcry for just totally dismissing any success that the Astros organization had during that stretch. But yet, Michigan, it's not met with that same outcry. And, of course, everyone just saying, well, you were an Ohio State fan. That's why you feel a certain way about this. I'm here to tell you, if Alabama, your Roll Tide team over there, if Nick Saban in Alabama, if a scandal happened like that during his time there, it would be met with the same. It would be probably met with more. It would be met with disgust. If Ohio State did exactly what Michigan did, no one would say, well, every other team's doing it. If LSU, Florida State, Clemson, Notre Dame, it doesn't matter. Cincinnati, it would be appalling any team that went to the lengths of which they did to do what they did. I'm glad that the NCAA, I'm glad that it is on their radar, and I'm glad that the stuff that's being reported or at least pushed out is that, okay, they are going for a pretty severe punishment. It's not just a little slap on the wrist and a little, we're going to put you on probation. I don't even know what the hell that means. I don't know how that even slows a team down. It doesn't.
Takes away scholarships for recruiting.
And then they'll just, your walk-ons. Hey, you're going to be a 5-star walk-on that's going to be paid really, really well.
They'll probably get some good academic scholarships.
There's ways around it, right? So my point is the probation thing is what I was expecting, and I'm like, that's nothing. There's workarounds, especially in the NIL space now, to work around that. But no, the fact that there's stuff coming out that we're talking postseason bans, that's pretty significant as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to enjoy it, especially with how many Michigan fans came out and said, everyone else is doing it. I thought they were going to come out and punish us by now. The NCAA moves very slow. But why do the Astros get vilified so much, but Michigan does not, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think that the Astros thing, kind of like you said, it was happening during the World Series. What would make me more mad if it was happening during the national championship game. I don't know. This whole thing is kind of confusing to me because at the end of the day, like a lot of people say, who cares? I don't really care that much. I think that Michigan would have won the national championship regardless. I think that they were a phenomenal football team and that they didn't need to go to those lengths to try and win football games. I think they would have won regardless. And I don't really think – I view kind of a postseason ban as kind of a slap on the wrist for doing what they did, to be honest. I don't think – that is a huge, at the end of the day, they still got their national championship. Who really cares? I think if the NCAA really wanted to punish Michigan, I think they would take wins away. And, wins were taken away from Notre Dame a couple years ago for kids not going to class.
Wins were taken away from Ohio State for a couple tattoos.
Yeah, so that is what kind of my gripe with it. I don't understand why they just get a little postseason ban, maybe probation, whatever. I don't really think that slows them down at all. There's no real reason they should care about that. I think if the NCAA were to have come back and taken wins away, I think I feel like that would be more harsh and a better punishment because of the reasons we've seen college football teams have wins taken away in the past. But at the end of the day, I don't think Connor Stalions is the reason Michigan won the national championship at all. They still went out and beat a really good Alabama team and then a Washington team in the national championship that was scorching hot all season. So, yeah, it's frustrating and it kind of makes you upset with just the sport of college football as a whole. But I still think they would have won it all, and that's why I kind of think that people don't think it's a big deal, because they probably would have won it regardless.
Yeah, I see people. Casey, I'm curious your thoughts, but I see people in Jacob. I could tell when he's pissed. I could see him over there.
I got to talk about two things.
Yes, the tattoo thing. I'm assuming, right?
No, that's actually not even what I was going to go.
That has nothing to do with any. Like, it's not even comparable.
It's not even comparable.
It's not even comparable.
That's why I wasn't even going to go there.
Okay.
But Drew put two things in the chat that I just want to touch on real quick. And I love Drew, and we get along great during Bengals season. But on Saturdays in the fall,
I'm a big J.J. Watt fan.
Big J.J. Watt fan, Drew Garrison. He said that Michigan got caught in October, and they stopped stealing signs in October. He said, why couldn't the teams they played just change their signs between October and January? So your response to "we cheated" is every other team in the country needs to change their offense. We don't need to change anything. They need to change everything because we cheated. That seems insane to me. How is that the natural response?
That's like, imagine if you cheat on your wife and you say, well, I cheated on you because I didn't have hot meals on the table when I got home. And it's like, well, I'll stop cheating on you if you have a warm meal on the table for me when I get home. Like, that's the Michigan fan response to this. That's wild to me.
It's
like,
crazy.
It's your problem, not mine.
And then the other one is, you're complaining about a super fan in the stands with an iPhone. No, I'm complaining about someone who was on the coaching staff traveling to away games and standing on the sideline next to your coordinators, giving them the signals from the other sideline. Let's not act like this is some fan that had no relation to the team. I understand that players didn't know. Yeah, players didn't know. Blake Corum just had an LLC with Connor Stallions as the co-owner. Players had no idea. Coaches had no idea. Yeah, Connor Stallions was just standing next to Jesse Mincer on the sideline with a play sheet of the other team's hand signals.
That's my biggest thing is when Jim Harbaugh and those other coaches come back and say that they didn't know. Like, come on. Do you run your football program? Are you the head football coach? Obviously, you know what's going on. Like, that's...
If Jim Harbaugh didn't know what Connor Stallions is doing, that's a much bigger issue than what Connor Stallions was actually doing. If you're a head coach of a Power 5 football program and you're in charge of 130, teenage to 20-year-old kids, and you have no idea a guy who's on your sideline in your facility working with your coordinators, that is a much bigger problem than if he did know.
This is like, and again, same fan base with Michigan. This is like when Ohio State and that Zach Smith thing was going on, all right, when you had the weird stuff that was being delivered to the Woody Hayes Center by Zach Smith, and everyone said, well, Urban should have known what was being delivered to his office. Urban should have known. Like, this was from Michigan fans during that scandal saying Urban should have known everything that was going on underneath, that coaching umbrella as far as that's concerned. But now all of a sudden, how is Harbaugh supposed to know? How is he supposed? And by the way, the Zach Smith thing was wild and not excusing any of that. But that was just bad. That was just him being a bad person. This is like actual stuff that had an impact on winning, had an impact on team personnel, had an impact on team execution out on the field. Like, give me a break. I still can't believe we're making excuses for this. I thought that this would be a slam dunk. Yeah, this is bad. You guys are bums. I can't believe we're actually having to explain why this is such a big deal. It's kind of wild.
And it's just a coincidence that all this whole coaching staff is gone. Harbaugh went to the league, took the strength coach, took the DC, took the running backs coach. The wide receivers coach went somewhere else. The D-line coach went somewhere else. The running backs coach went to jail for cyber crimes. How do you not connect the dots here and just see that something was happening in the organization?
Reed says, I think Jacob is biased when it comes to talking about his favorite team and criticizing his least favorite team.
Little bit.
I don't know, yeah.
I still feel like it's just pretty clear connection of dots here.
I still feel like there should be a punishment to some extent. Do I hope that the punishment is bigger than what I'm hearing? Yes, because as we all don't like Michigan, but at the end of the day, I still strongly believe that they still would have won the national championship.
But that's what makes it worse.
Right. And there it is. There's the doozy that Michigan fans always come back to. Drew Garrison in the chat. Something was certainly happening. It's just something that happens everywhere in college football. No, it does not. No, it does not.
A 350-page manifesto. What the hell are you talking about? No one does that. He's a psychopath, dude. Like, that's weird.
If you think other teams aren't filming signals, you're on drugs. You're allowed to film signals during the game. You're allowed to steal signals during the game. You can't send people to away games a month in advance. No one else is doing that.
and he literally set up shop on this, like what the extra layer of weird, Central Michigan. Him being posted up on the sideline. And Jacob, you keep bringing up, or Jimmy, you keep bringing up the fact that you don't think it had an impact that they were going to win a national championship no matter what. Michigan was one of the best teams in the country, no doubt about it. That's what makes us even more pathetic.
Right.
That's what makes them even more pathetic. It's what makes their fans even more pathetic for defending it. The fact that imagine the smartest kid in class needing to cheat on the guy next to him to pass a test. Like, that's what happened with Michigan. Yeah. They were the smartest kid in class and still felt like they needed to cheat to pass the exam. That's pathetic. That's embarrassing. I have no clue why it's so hard to say, yeah, I can't believe our team screwed up. It sucks that our team, they finally win a national championship, but they had to cheat to do it. Yeah, that stinks. You're the same person that'll say Barry Bonds isn't the home run king, but Michigan's national champions last year? Give me a break.
Yeah, I think the Michigan people that I kind of surrounded myself with have admitted that they know something was going on. They would have won the national championship anyway, but they don't think they're going to get punished because they think that their program is too big to be punished. So I think that's also annoying because they think, oh, we bring in too much money for the NCAA, so why would they punish us?
Ohio State's been bowl banned in the last decade. Notre Dame's had wins taken away. Louisville, when Rick Pitino was there, was at the top of the college basketball world. They had a national championship taken away. Let's not act like this doesn't happen to big brands across the sport. It is certainly on the table.
They know it happens. They just think they're better than the NCAA.
Exactly. Michigan fans' heads are getting real big winning 3 games in a row. They think they run the college football world.
I can't wait for the downfall. That's all. Is what it is.
It's gonna be beautiful.
By the way, my only question about the potential postseason ban, I didn't think the NCAA had any. I thought the playoff was separate from the college football playoff. Can they ban them from the playoff?
Yeah, you could not let them play postseason football. You can end their season after 12 games.
But isn't the playoff separate? I thought
the playoff is separate.
I thought
NCAA has the ability to end a team's season after 12 games. Not sending them to the conference championship game, not letting them play in bowl games. And the first couple rounds of the playoff, Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, all that stuff, they cannot play in those games.
Okay,
so they
that's
wouldn't
what
be
I was
able to
like.
Get to the Final Four.
Okay,
you see what I mean?
Fair enough. That's what I was curious about as far as
technically the playoff could just say NCAA no, because we're putting Michigan in, but they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, there was a talking point last year of what if the NCAA tried to ban them last year? The playoff still could have said, hey, they're the number 1 team in the country.
It would fry the relationship between the championship power in the sport and the teams that play the sport, which just can't happen.
Yeah. Mouse Cop, he's not happy with me as usual. I will listen to Tom talk about OSU, not the clown. That's fine. I mean, we want Tom. I want Tom. If Trace called me and said, "Hey, Tom wants to come back to host Off the Bench," I'm gonna be like, "Okay. Do you want me to go in to wipe the seat off for him? Do you want me to get him a new seat? Like, what do I need to do to get Tom back on Off the Bench?" Like, Mouse Cop, I love when people try to throw shade and digs to try to get under my skin when I'm like, I agree with you. I want Tom
You're
too.
not as good as a Hall of Fame announcer.
Oh, yeah. I'm not Tom Brenneman. Okay, I know that. Duh. It is what it is. But you know what? Anyways, I always love people who hide behind aliases on social media and just talk all big. It's hilarious. Use your real name. Anyways. All right. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We went ahead and we started looking at some of the biggest cheating scandals in the history of sports. There's a couple I forgot about. So we're going to step away for a few moments and talk about some of the biggest cheating scandals in the history of sports. Where does this Michigan cheating scandal rank amongst those? We'll get to all of that coming up next, Off the Bench, here on Chatterbox Sports, on YouTube and 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. I thought Mouse Cop wasn't going to listen anymore. Oh, my, welcome back. We are back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Who gave out their middle name?
Our dear friend, Mr. Mo. First off, welcome back, Mr. Mo. He's expecting the birth of his first kids. He's going to become a dad. He hasn't been watching the show for the last little bit. He's back in the chat today, and he's obliging with your request, Kenner.
I mean, he
told you where he's from. He told you the Air Force Base.
I got a new one, Crying Kenner. Now I'm Crying Kenner. Clown. But he did the Air Force. Oh, on an Air Force base?
It seems like it.
Oh, I respect him already.
He's the best. Mr. Mo's a good dude.
Shout out to him. As far as not Mouse Cop though, not Mouse Cop. I'm not shouting out Mouse Cop. Nope.
I think you just did like 3 times.
But I'm letting people know I'm not.
Okay.
So it's reverse, I don't know how that works. No, but Michigan cheating scandal, where does it rank amongst the worst cheating scandals in the history of sports? Yes, I think Jacob and I can admit we're probably a little biased as far as that's concerned.
Certainly.
But this idea that just because Connor Stallions was fired midseason and was not on the sideline for some of their biggest games down the stretch, the Penn State, the Ohio State, Big Ten championship game, the playoff games, this, that, and the other, people act like the cheating just mysteriously stopped. But let's not act like all the information that was gathered didn't still play a role in this moving forward. Keep in mind, they weren't going on the road. They were going on the road for some of the biggest games in like Michigan State. I mocked them trying to steal the sign. That's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in a rivalry game. You still should beat Michigan State. They're that bad. But there's a reason that they got beat up pretty good by TCU in the playoff 2 years ago. It's because they were out stealing signs from all the teams that they really felt like they were going to run into. TCU shocked everybody when they made the playoff that year. They didn't even waste time trying to cheat to beat them. And look what happened. They got kind of punched in the mouth a little bit. How they lost to TCU, who got bludgeoned by 50 against Georgia in the national championship game. The same team that Ohio State would have bludgeoned had they, made a field goal down the stretch against Georgia. They would have bludgeoned them too. So, Jake, I don't know what you think, but this idea that just because Connor Stallions wasn't on the sideline during that stretch, that it had no impact on the team whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I mean, the only people saying that is Michigan fans, and not to mention when he was, disbarred from the program and kicked out and not allowed around the team, he was sitting front row at the Rose Bowl. He was at the celebration in the locker room after the national championship, so that should lead to some ramifications from the NCAA as well, but I'm sure it won't.
You really hate Michigan.
Oh, my God.
It's hilarious.
Where does it rank amongst the biggest cheating scandals in the history of sports? What is it? What is the number one cheating scandal in the history of sports, I guess? Now, I can't say I could fairly answer this, only because I'm learning. Yeah.
That's number one.
Well, zoom in.
That's number one.
That's what I was going to say.
Right here. Oh, you can't see it with the glare. But
the glare.
That's the 1919 World Series banner for the Reds right there on my computer. That would be the biggest cheating scandal in sports history, in my opinion. I mean, a team quite literally threw the championship game series of their sport. That's insane.
Could you imagine if the Reds made the World Series and then you've come to find out a couple years later that they lost on purpose?
I mean, I think everyone always feels like the Reds are not doing everything they can to win, so I think we can all relate to a certain extent.
Get a little bit of money.
Yes.
Cash considerations.
But not to make more money, to save money. I mean, there
course.
is kind of a little bit of a difference there, right? Like morals. As far as, that's a weird one too. For one, yes, so many overlapping moral flaws in all of that, but to lose, we're talking about a team we're talking about the Astros who were cheating to win. You talk about but then you're throwing games, that's pretty despicable too.
Yeah.
But is that cheating?
I think that's the worst form of cheating.
But yeah, I guess that was a silly question. I guess it's cheating, but it's when I think of cheating, it's cheating to gain an advantage. But I guess their advantage was to throw the game money.
Yeah.
Money is usually what it always comes down to, greed as far as that's concerned. Then there's some of them that we have kind of forgotten about. One that I'm going to pull this up to make sure I'm reading this correctly. Some of the biggest ones. Do you still have it up in front of you?
Are you going to talk about the doozy?
Oh yeah,
the big one we talked about before the show.
So the disgrace at the Paralympics.
That's right.
So this says, according to USA Today, arguably this is the one that's the most cringe of them all.
It's the worst.
Throwing a game for money, greed is at the, greed's always going to be at the center of every decision to cheat on anything, right? But the 2000 disgrace at the Paralympics, perhaps one of the most shocking and often forgotten cheating scandals took place at the 2000 Paralympics involving Spain's intellectual disability basketball team. Okay, the team won gold in Sydney, but was later found to be fraudulent. Now, how would this gold be fraudulent? This is pretty messed up. 10 of the 12 players, they all faked their disabilities, dudes and gals. They faked their disabilities. The incident had a number of devastating ripple effects, with Paralympic organizers deciding to suspend the entire intellectual disability classification at each of the next 2 games, leaving athletes with legitimate disabilities on the sidelines for 8 years. That is insane. That might be the grossest one of them all.
Well, that's just disgusting. I mean, it's one thing to steal signs and, maybe throw a game for some money or whatever. That's all fine and dandy. Faking a disability because you're not good enough to play in the real Olympics and you won a gold medal, I mean, that's bottom of the barrel individual stuff.
In 2000, I mean, I know it was a couple decades ago, but that wasn't that long ago. I mean, you like to think that all these horrible things happened way back in the day, not today, not during our time, right? But yes, I'd say that one's right there at the top. That one might be the worst one, just because of the the morale, just the moral implications that it had as far as that's concerned. That's horrible. That to me would be number one as far as that's concerned. This list too that I came across, one that I think is the most. What about the most overrated one? I think the most overrated cheating scandal to me is Deflategate. I think Deflategate is the most overrated one. As far as that's concerned, this idea that the Patriots dynasty was because of flat footballs, I have a hard time believing that. And especially when you talk to the former NFL players I've talked to said, okay, it's not a big deal, but it's not a big deal. I haven't had one NFL player say, oh man, that gives you a significant advantage. And the guys that I've spoken to, but Casey, where does that fall amongst your scandals, not scandals, but cheating scandals in sports? Is that an overrated one in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that's an overrated one for me. I understand the premise of it, and I understand they were caught doing it, but
they won the game 45-7.
I get it, but how much of an effect is it? I don't really know. I think that Patriots team was way better than the Colts anyways that year. They were going to win that ball game regardless. I don't think that their whole dynasty is built off of this Deflategate. Now, there's been plenty of cheating scandals from the Patriots, like the Spygate. That was pretty crazy, spying on the Bengals when they clearly didn't need to. That was a wild one. There's a slew of different football ones, but one that comes to mind for me that's like the biggest one that's just wild that it even happened. You can even maybe say it's not even a cheating scandal. It's just like gross, completely like just terrible officiating. And that's Diego Maradona using his hand to score in the World Cup. That was kind of crazy. He basically came out afterwards and said, that was the hand of God. That was the hand of God that made me score that goal. And then like 14 years later, he was like, no, that was just me using my hands to score. Eventually, VAR would come into play, and it would be completely fixed. Nowadays, you'll never have any officiating mistakes in soccer. But back then, that was just crazy. Like, how could you not see the guy literally hit the ball like this and score? It was just wild.
I've seen the picture of that a billion times of Maradona handball, not handball. How did they miss it?
I don't get it.
That might be the clearest handball I've ever seen. He punched the ball out of the sky. I don't understand how they missed it.
I don't get it.
Social media must have been wild.
Yeah, probably.
The other one on this list too, so we have like an incident like the World Series with the Houston Astros. You talked about that event right there. We talked about the 2000 Paralympics, right? But like this, the USA Today has listed as the Major League Baseball, the steroid era, the entire era. So they have 95 to 2005 as one of the worst cheating scandals in the history of sports. Here's why I'm not willing to go that far. For one, I'm biased because I missed the steroid era in baseball, not going to lie. I think baseball, deep down, they missed the steroid era too. Let's just be real as far as that's concerned. But the baseball steroid era, a lot of these are where you have everyone around baseball doing it. When Michigan fans do that very lazy take of, well, everyone's doing it. I can't do this with the steroid era because you legitimately could have said everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing it. That's why I don't put this at the top of the cheating scandal. This was a lot of corrupt stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't know if I do put the whole era of the steroid era up there as one of the biggest cheating scandals in sports. I don't. I think that's kind of odd to put an entire decade era in at the top of a list.
I don't think it's the biggest steroid scandal in sports.
Yeah.
I think that falls on Russia's Olympics team.
Yeah. Right. Noave Marte. I mean, come on.
The Russia doping scandal was 150 athletes and like 55 medals or something like that stripped from Russia. Like, that was insane. That's one of the best documentaries of all time about the Russian doping scandal. But I digress.
It's like the whole decade. I can't put that in there. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that either.
As far as that's concerned. What's the one that just happened?
With Canada.
With the soccer.
Canada with drones spying on other teams' practices, right?
Yeah, that's right. Which they got punished for it really quickly.
I think
the Canada team is still playing, but the team.
The
is
coach
still
got
playing,
fired,
but
right?
The coaches have been removed.
Yeah, coaches were removed. Canada's still playing. They got a 6-point deduction heading into the group stage, and I think they're going to be just fine and make their way out of it.
Yeah, I think they still dominated their game. So maybe it mattered, maybe it didn't matter. Who knows? I mean, The cheating scandal for that club or that country goes back like years though, right? Because they won it all in 2020, I believe. They won either the World Cup or something like that, or maybe it was the last Olympics. I can't remember. But I knew that they were looking back into it, seeing if they had been possibly cheating since then. That might be a really big deal. I don't know if they've proven anything yet, though. That's still something that's ongoing. So
It doesn't bother me. Everyone's doing it, and once they fire the coaches, the cheating stops, right?
Right. Of course.
So everything's fine.
Well, the coaches didn't even know.
Yeah, the coach. Yeah, I bet the coach. I feel bad for the coach.
That's right.
I mean, I wish she would have taken the job in the NFL.
Hopefully they get a promotion to Los Angeles.
Yeah, take the strength coach with you. Do it all. Do what you got to do. Poor guys and gals.
See a lot of people in the chat pointing out various boxing, UFC rigged decisions over the years.
Guy.
I am. But if we started naming off decisions that we think were rigged, we'd be here all day. This segment would go an hour. So, I mean, there's a lot in recent memory. The first Volkanovski-Islam fight seemed very questionable. The Francis Ngannou-Tyson Fury super boxing match, Francis Ngannou won that pretty clearly, and they gave it to Fury on points. And then Sean Conner points out Buster Douglas seemingly taking a dive against Mike Tyson, obviously one of the most famous ones of all time. Most of those are just conjecture. Things go to decision. You think they should have went the other way, and then the scorecards don't really match what you watched in the fight. But it kind of is what it is. Those are more guessing than the other ones. The other ones have proof, and most of those do not. But they're still fun to guess about.
I think the most egregious and wild cheating scandal is the one I learned about over my vacation. I was telling you guys earlier on the show. Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding, the figure skating, that whole scandal, and I don't know if they ever proved that she had officially tried to get her basically out of the games by breaking her legs. I don't know if they ever proved that, but it is wild to think that there's a possibility that an athlete hired a person to go and just take out someone so they can win gold.
Surprised it doesn't have more.
I've never heard of this.
You've never heard of this one? No. Basically, the two top U.S. figure skaters, there was a scandal back then. It was Tanya Harding, right? She was the one, or was it Kerrigan? I can't remember who was the one who sent out the hit. I can't remember.
Oh, we're letting you drown. I do not remember.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm blanking on who sent it to who, but they were both the top competitors in figure skating. One of them basically is accused of sending out a hitman to take out the other one so that they can win gold.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
I don't think it's been confirmed, though.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's really what this comes down to at the end of the day. Yeah. All right, everyone on the radio side, appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, hanging out with us here on 1410 ESPN Radio. No Kenner and Kev show today. Mark Neal and Shay Neal in for us here this afternoon. So they're going to be taking over coming up for the next 3 hours, coming up right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. And then we'll continue on with more Off the Bench here on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. So we'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in. Off the Bench on 1410 ESPN Radio. I saw in the chat a little bit ago, the Bengal Bros, they wanted an arm wrestling contest between me and Reed.
Oh, yeah. We had a super chat.
It was a super chat. Get to the super chat. I thought it was an intriguing super chat.
What was the super chat?
Yeah, I can't find it. I saw it pop up earlier. Did it disappear?
My stupid queue is not working. Hang on. Let me go here. Fan funding, and I have a realtor named it was Chi-Town Real Estate. I don't remember what his full thing is. It's kind of
Adam House, I think.
Adam House, I think, yeah. Reed versus Kenner arm wrestle. Who's the bookie? I got money line on Old Man Strength Kenner. I also
Old
get
Man
winner.
Strength. I'm 34. Is that, I mean, I'm old compared to you dudes, but what you're what? Like you're 17?
22.
22. Casey, what are you?
I'm 26.
Oh, so you're old. You're almost old.
Yep.
And Jacob, when do you graduate high school? Or Jimmy, when do you graduate high school?
I'm 22.
You're 20. You're the same age as him.
I'm the
Jimmy and I
same
are the
age as
same
Jake.
age.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's
That's
like
awesome.
the pictures of Jose Altuve and Aaron Judge. Like, these guys play the same sport. It's like these guys are both 22.
I can't say that. I always thought Jimmy was short, and then he's taller than me. He's taller than me.
Jimmy's a tall guy.
Yeah, you crouch in that chair. You just have like a short person frame, but you stand up, you tower over me, dude.
I have long legs. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Athlete. But yeah, so they want an arm wrestling.
I think we can set that up.
Yeah.
I think we can set that up.
I need to
I think
start
we could
lifting
do it
a little
on
bit more.
Boxed Lunch.
I think we could do it today.
Now.
No. I got stretch. I got stretch. Put my bank account set up.
All right.
Has nothing to do with
We'll
that.
have to collect some wagers in the Discord.
Oh, we got
legally.
This is
of
the
course.
type of thing you got to build it up. You can't just,
You guys, everyone can just Venmo me, and if I feel like paying out the winners, I will. If not, it's okay.
See?
That works. That works.
Nonetheless, still no Jamar Chase at camp. Still no, but like that. So Jay Morrison last week, I said was will he be back? How long does he think this goes? He said he'd be surprised if he wasn't back by this Friday. Well, I don't know if he'll be out there today. He wasn't out there for it was first contact practice yesterday. No key injuries, first day of contact. That's always key. That'd be miserable. I think this is the worst time of year.
There was
for
huge
coaches.
news. They came out of Bengals camp that had a lot of people very nervous yesterday. Miles Murphy was, I believe, carted off the field or limped off the field. He limped off the field,
Yep.
but after practice, Lou Anarumo cleared up that it was just cramps, just working through,
Paul Pierce action.
A little bit of hot weather. Yeah, maybe he had to go relieve himself. in the
Hot
bathroom,
weather?
So yeah, it was hot yesterday.
Wasn't that hot.
I was hot.
You guys should have
It's
gone
like
to
95.
You guys,
Yeah, it was like 95.
you guys should have gone to your bubble.
That's true.
You should have gone to your little bubble. It'd been, you don't need those cramps. Go to your little bubble. Come on.
We have one now.
Yeah, you have one now. No. But like as a coach, this must be the worst time of year, especially for NFL teams when you have all this money invested into a roster and like every time someone how often do you think Joe Burrow gets hit during camp?
I would hope never.
It didn't even
Never,
take
right?
Joe Burrow
Like-
to get hit.
Yeah.
He just, pulled
No.
his
Like I
calf
get that.
and
Like
it
you're
was
not
that.
setting him up to be hit, but like you do have to. So the very first time you ever get hit is first preseason game you're in, or like that's all I'm
our
saying.
starters don't play the preseason.
I know, but that's what's why. I mean, like your body has to take it takes adjusting to get used to. That's easy for us to say, but I'm just saying I wouldn't want my quarterback touched either, but like at some point you have to start taking some licks just to kind of get into it a little bit, right? Like that's what's wild. What, Jimmy?
Nothing.
What?
No, nothing.
Is he making fun?
No.
What?
It was just something you said made me laugh.
What'd I say that made you laugh?
I'm not making fun of you. You just said you don't want your quarterback to be touched. And I thought it was funny.
Yeah, Kinner's quarterback does the touch.
Thank you,
I
Jimmy.
wasn't going to say it, but.
I mean, yesterday Kinner said, "Oh, Bengals fans just follow their quarterback." No, Browns fans don't.
Even when I'm not taking shots at your team, the Bengal Bros, they get all.
I stick with the chat.
I follow the chat.
Yeah, that's right.
But no.
Read's in the chat.
All right, let me get my old man glasses on so I can zoom in and read. Don't turn your back on Watson. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Reed. No.
We get this segment about once a month, and it's the best segment.
Yep. Ask Elliot.
Yeah, we need Elliot back. He'd love this one.
Nonetheless. But, so no, you said the first preseason game, a week from Saturday?
A week
for
from
the
Saturday.
Bengals?
Yep, August 10th.
Hall of Fame game's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Do you watch it?
I
watch
do.
Hall of Fame game?
I think we talked about this yet. I think I watched just the first couple possessions. I like, just the intro to it. You hear the fans, you hear the crack of the pads, and then it's like, oh, I think I saw him play on Friday night last year in Cincinnati for high school football somewhere. Like, we don't know who any of these dudes are. So
Bears announced Tyson Bagent's going to start at quarterback, so I assume that means no Caleb Williams at all in the game. I would assume no C.J. Stroud as well. I haven't heard anything from the Texans.
I don't even know why they do the Hall of Fame game. Really is kind of silly. I know they want to isolate it, make it its own thing, but you could still do that starting it with the same amount of preseason games everywhere else. Like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, Caleb Williams is not going to play in this. We talked about the importance of preseason, but you're not going to play any of your starters in this. I'm not advocating for you to do so. This seems like a waste of a game, but it's an opportunity for the NFL to make money. I know why they do it. It's money. It's an opportunity to highlight the Hall of Fame. I get that, but I don't think it needs this game to highlight the Hall of Fame. It's just kind of silly to me.
The only reason I like the way they do it is they've started doing two teams that have people being inducted. I think it's going to be cool for the Texans and Texans fans to be there for Andre Johnson's induction. I'm not quite sure who the Bears guy is. It was an older player, but the Bears have a player being inducted.
How old,
as well.
like 36 or 34?
No, before my time watching football, early 1900s, I believe. But yeah, no. Oh, and Devin Hester for the Bears. So two guys for the Bears, and then Andre Johnson for the Texans. So very cool that those fan bases get to go and see their team get inducted, and you get to watch a preseason game, which is what it is. But I think it's a cool way to kind of make the Hall of Fame induction part of the weekend a little bit more fan oriented than just ex-players and media and whatever else like it used to be.
You see, speaking of the Bears, DJ Moore landing a 4-year extension, coming in about $27 million a year.
That shocked me.
Were you expecting more?
Way more.
Really?
I was.
I have him in that T. Higgins.
So do I.
Era.
But
so you think T is going to get more than that?
Yeah. I think the top receivers out in the market right now are going to push 40. And then I think the guys in that DJ Moore category were going to push 30. I thought DJ Moore was going to get at least 30.
Casey, what did you think about that 27 a year?
I do think 27 was just a little low. I thought maybe it would be closer to the 30, like Jacob's suggesting there. I don't know if he would have gotten 30, but I thought for sure maybe at least like 28, 29. But we're basically pulling hairs there. I mean, it's not a big deal that he didn't get there. If he just waited, he probably would have gotten it, to be honest.
He signed his contract with his helmet on after practice, too. I don't know if you saw the picture. It was really cool.
It is really cool when players sign their contracts, isn't it?
With their helmet on, right after practice. I thought that was fun. I've never seen that in a picture before. Teams always post the pictures of their guys signing contracts. They're usually in, a suit or,
Did he sign it coming off the practice field?
Right off the field. Helmet. He had a hoodie on with his helmet and visor and everything, and sat down and signed the contract. It was pretty cool.
And DJ Moore's like the 4th or 5th best receiver in the division? Really?
In the division?
Yeah.
Amon-Ra. All right, let's do this. Amon-Ra.
Justin Jefferson.
Keenan Allen. Justin Jefferson. DJ Moore.
Yeah, 4th or 5th.
4.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Jefferson, the number 1, though, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know how you were. I
No,
didn't know what you were. Okay.
I was just. I thought my assumption when he said that at first is that he was putting 2 Lions ahead.
Oh,
of him.
no.
So I was trying to figure out who the second Lion was going to be.
No.
Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams soon.
Jameson Williams soon.
Olympics update. How about this? The U.S. men's debut in Olympic 3-on-3 basketball at the Paris Games was one to forget. Jimmer Fredette and company. I know Nick Kirby's a big Jimmer Fredette guy. One and done.
They put it A.
They
do.
The Americans fell to Serbia 22-14 on Tuesday night in their opening game of these Olympics after failing to qualify for the Tokyo Games.
Oh damn!
So,
I thought they played today.
But didn't it go? I don't
Kinner
even know why
said they do. Yeah.
I don't even know why they added the 3-on-3. Do you guys care about that? I mean,
I would care about
it. You had the 3-on-3 on top of the fact you already have.
Yeah, I'd care about it if actual player, like if it was LeBron, KD, and Steph in the 3-on-3, I'd watch that. But obviously they're playing.
If you want to add a basketball element to the Winter Games, I'm fine with that. But I don't know why you're. Cool. I have no clue why you're doing it on top of that. As far as that, I know there's a girl from Dayton, Cody McMahon. She's on the women's team. She's from Centerville. She's on the women's team competing in that. So that's pretty cool from a local perspective over in Dayton. But yeah, you saw that video of the rugby, of the finish to that rugby. Is it match, rugby game, rugby match? I'm not a rugby guy, so I'm not really sure what we got going on with that.
They rugbyed.
They rugbyed. The end of that rugbyed, that friendly. All right, take a look to this wild finish. Casey, give a little backstory here. I'm not a big rugby guy. What we got going on here?
I mean, I'm not really a big rugby guy myself either, but this was winding down to the final seconds of the game. Basically equivalent to like a Hail Mary actually turning into a touchdown was what happened in this game, apparently. This was also the U.S. women's national team first medal ever earned in the Olympics for rugby, which is just phenomenal. Nice. Take a look at it.
To what that would be in every other sport, and it was like a 99-yard touchdown, a deep 3 buzzer beater, like blah, 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 laying out exactly how crazy that was. Pretty cool touchdown to see. I mean, that was crazy. Broke a bunch of tackles. I need to understand the rules of rugby because it seemed as if she was tackled 5 times.
You guys have done your cricket rules on this show. We had a cricket breakdown on the show before rugby might be next at this point. I don't follow rugby either to know, so that's good to know that was a cool thing. We talked about this earlier. That's what's wild. The sports we follow in season, right? Like you have a bad game, focus a couple days later, a week later, like this is play bad. You got 4 years to think about it. It's like not the same. Elliot's in the chat. Shout out to Elliot. Does Elliot know that Jimmy impersonated him earlier?
I don't know. He's going to have to go back and find that.
Elliot, this is not your first time on the show today because Jimmy was you earlier, just so you know.
I gave my best Elliot impression. I don't think he's going to like it very much, but
Elliot said Kinner slandered Votto. Jesus, can't read. Kinner slandered Votto. Mouse Cop said Kinner attacked the chat. I did not attack the chat. I attacked you and all your negativity, Mouse Cop. That's what I did. Whatever. Game Day says Kinner saved his Votto take for you, Elliot. So there you go. But nonetheless, anything else? Closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Olympics. I'm sure there's some sport you've never watched before on today that'd be fun to watch. So go watch it.
Men's basketball, the men's team 3 o'clock. They got South
real team?
Sudan. Yeah.
I did not know they played today. That's awesome. That line moved drastically.
Yeah, they were a 43.5-point favorite. It's
21
exhibition
now, right?
game. Oh wow, really?
I think it's 21.
Man, I wish you would have gotten the South Sudan plus 4.
Wait, why did it move?
Because they beat South Sudan by 1 point in the preseason game,
So
or the exhibition game. Oh, Casey, if you think I'm not buying that 20 back up to 45, you're deeply mistaken. This team was playing a practice game with half their players on the bench. LeBron played like 18 minutes. They won by 1 point. They're going to dominate South Sudan.
Yeah, keep in mind, too, this was one of those. So South Sudan gets their first Olympic win ever, right? So you add that on top of how U.S. struggled with them during the exhibition plays you talked about.
Yeah.
So I think you're adding all that momentum there. They're a feel-good story. I think that's playing a role in the line moving in this. But you're right.
Yeah.
I would go back. I would take that 43.
We beat Serbia by 6 in the exhibition game. We just beat them by 20.
Yep.
So,
you also saw once Steve Kerr got that lineup right, that's when it took off because they were sluggish to start. I mean, Joel Embiid was not
that
good.
yet? The lineup for today?
I wonder if KD's in there. I wonder if KD needs to be in there just to let everyone know.
You think Tatum will play today?
I hope so, so everyone stops crying. My God.
I hope not.
I hope not.
I hope not, too.
No,
at this
I mean,
point.
I think you will if we're going to beat them by 40.
USA has not posted a starting lineup yet, but the game day graphic they posted is Kevin Durant. So I would assume he's starting.
What did he finish? 8 of 8 or 12 of 12? What was
8
it?
of 9.
8 of 9. Oh, he did miss one
He
down
missed
the
his
stretch.
last
What a bum.
jump shot.
What a bum.
The Dwayne Wade in the broadcast booth was very mad at Steve Kerr for not pulling him out of a 20-point game so he could be 100%.
You know why Steve Kerr did that?
Because he left the Warriors.
Because he's him, her, dude. Or him, her. Or not him, her. Well, see, I messed it up. I'm done. We're out of here before I get in trouble. This has been Off the Bench presented by United Turkey Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube.